Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 612 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And as always, it's still heating up, and we have very big news to cover tonight.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news in the Middle East and in Ukraine. Of course, to lay out our schedule for tonight, we will be covering the Middle Eastern news first, and then we'll be moving into the Ukraine news second. This is once again being made as a decision by me and Matthew on the channel, because the news inside the Middle East is far more pressing at the moment in terms of the overwhelming consequences and implications of what's happening compared to what's happening in Ukraine at the moment. Of course, we will be getting to the Ukraine war news a little bit later in the stream, but it will not be at this very moment. Moving on into the Middle Eastern news, we have finally heard an announcement that the Dwight D. Eisenhower aircraft carrier, a Nimitz-class supercarrier of the U.S. Navy, has finally arrived and passed through the Strait of Gibraltar. Pictures were taken today as it was passing through the strait. We can actually see what appears to be the Rock of Gibraltar in the background, and we can see the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower sailing through the strait in front of us right here.
I like that they took the time to send up a drone while they were passing through to take a photo for like posterity's sake, just to let everybody know that America had arrived.
And also, I like how all the a lot of sailors are on the deck, just kind of taking in the sights of the Rock of Gibraltar. Really neat to see, and also, it's quite good to know that the Dwight D. Eisenhower has finally made it, and at least we have a waypoint as to where it is. Over the past few days, we've actually had no idea where the Dwight D. Eisenhower really was in the world. Some of us were assuming, including myself, that it may have made it into the Mediterranean at this point. Others were saying that it may have only made it about halfway through the Atlantic, and others were saying it should be entering the Strait of Gibraltar. And for the folks that were saying it should have been entering the Strait of Gibraltar, they got it right on the money. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower arrived in the strait just today. We can see that on its deck is mostly a complement of FA-18 Super Hornets, which is the normal kind of aircraft that is carried on supercarriers in large amounts. The FA-18 is a multi-role fighter, or more so of a multi-role jet, and it can be used for air-to-ground and air-to-air missions at the same time, much like the F-16. It really is just the F-16 of the sea, but nevertheless, it is wonderful to see that the Dwight D. Eisenhower has appeared, and not only that, it is joining a large number of U.S. naval forces that are already inside of the Mediterranean Ocean, Mediterranean Ocean, what the hell am I talking about? We're talking about the Mediterranean Sea. We got a graph today that was published by OSINT Defender, and also made by Schizo Intel. So hopefully it's not schizophrenic. Hopefully it's just good intel. But we did get to see the mass of U.S. and also coalition NATO forces that are also within the Mediterranean Sea. We can see that this specific group number 3 on this map, is a French, what appears to be some kind of an LHD group with a small escort, comprising of the Surcouf and the Alsace, which we can see up here in the northern Mediterranean, just off the southern coast of France. Meanwhile, we can see that the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower is being followed by its task force, the USS Philippine Sea, a Ticonderoga-class missile cruiser, the USS Gravely and Mason, which I believe are both Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, and then the ITS Virginio Fasson, which I believe is an Italian destroyer of some sort, although we don't know the exact class. We can also see a mass of ships that are not assigned to any specific group or fleet inside of the Mediterranean Sea. This comprises of a lot of ships. The USNS Yuma, the USNS Trenton, the USNS Medgar Evers, the USNS Laramie, and also several Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the USS Berkeley, the USS Paul Ignatius, the USS Arleigh Burke itself, the namesake of the entire class of destroyers, that is the Arleigh Burke class, the USS McFall, and the USS Stetham, that are also in the Eastern Mediterranean, but not in any specific grouping, and so we don't know exactly where they are at the moment. We can, of course, see that the Ford carrier strike group is currently based off of the coast of Cyprus and consists of the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is, of course, the most modern and advanced aircraft carrier in the U.S. Navy's arsenal, along with the USS Normandy, a Ticonderoga-class missile cruiser, and then 4 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers that are also accompanying the Ford. We can also see multiple other ships as well that are in the region, including some German ships, such as the FGS Erfurt and Oldenburg, and several others as well, although we're not going to try and list all of them off, because it is an extremely large number of ships that are currently inside of the Mediterranean. And it is showing that, especially just based off of the amount of times that USS shows up in the designation of most of these ships, this largely appears to be a U.S.-led naval presence inside the Mediterranean that is responding to the situation that is currently ongoing in Israel. We can see that the Dwight D. Eisenhower will not remain in the Mediterranean indefinitely, at least for the moment, much like the rest of these U.S. naval forces will be. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower will be moving through the Mediterranean, through the Suez Canal with its task or strike group more so, and on around the Arabian Peninsula and into the Persian Gulf, where it'll then be standing off toe-to-toe directly with the Iranian Navy as well as the Iranian armed forces right off of their coastline. So hopefully we will see more updates on where the Dwight D. Eisenhower is as it's transiting the Mediterranean, and hopefully we will get more additional information when it finally arrives in the Persian Gulf. Moving on from that, U.S. forces also appear to be arriving in larger numbers once more inside of the area of the Middle East as a whole, as we're starting to hear that airlift wings are arriving in a larger number at this point, and from what we are told, a significant number of C-17 Globemasters and C-5 Super Galaxy transport aircraft from the Air Force's Air Mobility Command have been arriving in the Middle East and southeastern Europe over the last 48 hours. This also could be a sign that larger amounts of U.S. forces are moving into the area. We do not know exactly what these C-17s and C-5s are carrying. An interesting thing to note is that a large amount of these aircraft are apparently also arriving in southeastern Europe as a whole, meaning an area around the Balkans. If we're going off of that, this may also be showing that the United States may be expecting that the Middle Eastern situation may boil over into a much larger conflict, possibly even a world war, as these forces aren't really even close to being in the Middle East or responding to an Iranian threat. These almost seem like they're more so poised to be dealing with a threat that may be coming from the direction of Russia instead. Of course, showing us that there may be a little bit more behind the scenes than what is being let on to the naked eye to all of us out here in the public. Moving on from that little bit of news and on into the rest of the news outside of Israel, before we get into Turkey, which was a massive bombshell today, and I'm sure many of y'all have been talking about. Inside of Iraq, we heard that a Shia militia put out a video today. Of course, this is an Iraqi Shia militia, and they were launching drones to target U.S. bases like we have been seeing over the past few days, but they did something very interesting here that obviously shows who they're aligned with. Very interesting to see that they're going to make...
Is that a paper cutout?
That is a paper cutout of the flag of Palestine.
Damn.
Pretty sad. And then that's the end of the clip, and then they throw up their little, very ISIS-like looking flag. But nevertheless, it is still odd to note that these groups are not going out of their way to try and hide their affiliations. Usually terrorist groups are kind of a little bit out there and open with what they're planning to do or what they are going to do. But it is still something to just see a group go, hey, we're terrorists, and by the way, we support the other terrorists inside of Palestine that are called Hamas and Hezbollah. So have fun knowing that. And it's like, that's a little odd. But nevertheless, these people are probably being glassed at the moment because the U.S. Air Force is possibly conducting airstrikes in a similar area to where this attack was conducted inside of eastern Syria, near the area of Badia al-Mayadin in the area around there in the desert. To show y'all where that is exactly, because the way that post was made, it made it sound like there was a desert called the Al-Mayadin Desert. This is kind of the general area that we're assuming the attack occurred in, right outside of the Euphrates River area. It's probably out here somewhere, but we don't know exactly where. We've just been told that supposed U.S. airstrikes are conducting in this area, being conducted in this area, and hopefully they will be successful in mitigating the threat that these terrorist groups pose to U.S. forces as well as Israeli forces that are continuing on their operations against the Hamas terrorist group inside of Palestine and the Gaza Strip. Now to get on into the bombshell news that many of y'all have probably heard today and has caused public outrage around the world in many different countries. As many of y'all know, when this Hamas attack began inside of Israel and around 1,500 to 2,000 Israeli citizens were killed in just about 36 hours, the president of Turkey made a pretty interesting statement where he didn't condemn Hamas and he kind of supported and was sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. As that went on, everyone was a little interested in what he was trying to get at, and it seems like he did back off for a minute. But today, he made a statement in Istanbul at the Ataturk International Airport, which I'll be showing y'all the location of right here. So let me go try and find the international airport, and I believe this is it. let's see. It actually doesn't give me the name. It tells me that the Turkish Teknik Sol facility is at this airport, but it doesn't tell me if this is the...
nice.
Yeah, it doesn't tell me if it's the international airport or not. It looks as though it would be. And actually, hold up. What the hell is this? Okay, maybe that's the old international airport. Let me go over here. And this looks a little bit more like the Ataturk. They're not having any names to these things. Like, that's weird. Usually you get names of the international airports. We're not getting those here. Nevertheless,
hopefully they changed the name of it because we don't need Ataturk anymore because they've gone so astray. Let's call it Bad Turk Airport.
Well, I wouldn't say that because Ataturk is actually a little bit of a different kind of guy compared to what right now Erdogan is doing. Probably Ataturk is what Turkey needs at the moment. But nevertheless, the president of Turkey, Erdogan, came out today and made a statement that they were going to align themselves with Hamas, and they were actually going to try and have Israel declared as a criminal country. I'm going to be taking y'all to the little clip that we have here for a minute. And he says, we will declare Israel a war criminal. We are already working on it. And so here's a clip from this rally.
Dünya mazlumlarının sesi olan barışın teminatı geliyor. Cumhurbaşkanımız Recep Tayyip Erdoğan.
I like the little voice crack right there. Hang on. Let's listen to that again. Absolute art.
Recep Tayyip Erdoğan geliyor.
Now, for some reason, the video is missing about 9 million pixels. Just putting that out there. But what's very interesting about this is the amount of people that are waving flags in the crowd of Turkey and Palestine is such a large number. It almost looks like something that Ceausescu would do inside of Romania to make it look like a lot of people supported the Romanian government. It's such a large volume of people. Like, look, they're going to pan back to the crowd in a minute. This almost looks like it was one of those Russian moves where everyone comes here, they give all of them flags and then tell them to wave the flags. It's almost like that. It's very weird to see that a lot of countries that start to move in an authoritarian direction always have a large amount of flags to hand out at these rallies before people even get there.
I'm seeing a lot of people saying this looks like it's fake, and I was thinking the same thing. It's too choreographed looking to be natural. And also, what even is this? Like, the guy's coming out like he's a wrestler or something.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is just something for the cameras, like for political purposes, or is he actually, like, in support of terrorism?
I think he actually is, to be honest. And damn, they're just going to let the music keep on playing. Good lord. And now he goes walking back, gets something whispered in his ear. Everyone's still waving the flags.
Zulüm karşısında dünyada meydanlar tek yürek olmuş, tek bilek olmuş. Zalime karşı
It's still going on. Why does this music sound like a mix of Kung Fu Panda and the Wild West? Like, why this doesn't even sound like normal music. And it starts again?
Man, they got that nice, wonderful soundtrack on loop. All this hype for him to come out and support terrorism.
This guy's having like 1,000 voice cracks during this too.
Man, he's getting emotional.
So is he even going to address the crowd yet, or are they just doing a little like fan meet thing? And now they go walking off again. And so that's the end of the clip.
Well, that was it?
That was it. That was it. That was the end of the clip. He went out there for 2.5 minutes and waved to the crowd. And of course, he went on to give an address. Sadly, don't have the entire address right now at the moment. But this is still just weird how this whole thing went down. It looks choreographed. It looks very fake. Once again, like many countries do, whenever they side with bad or worser groups. And it's just odd to see this kind of thing. But moving on from this, he of course did say that, as a direct quote, "We will declare Israel a war criminal. We are already working on it." And this led the Israelis to immediately withdraw all of their diplomatic staffs from Turkey and also Ankara, the capital of Turkey today, and recall them back into Israel. This is according to a statement by Nexta. Israeli Foreign Ministry recalls all Israeli diplomatic representatives to Turkey amid Erdogan's grave statements. Ministry head Eli Cohen. Given the grave statements coming from Turkey, I have ordered the return of diplomatic representatives there in order to conduct a re-evaluation of the relations between Israel and Turkey. Showing that there's now been a complete diplomatic breakdown in between the Turkish state as well as the state of Israel. This will most likely be something that does not repair or mend very soon, and a very poor move by the Turks, considering that they are aligning with a pro-Russian group, a pro-Iranian group. Iran also isn't a big fan of the Turks either, if any of y'all don't know. Not only are the Syrians the ones who fund the Kurdish terrorist groups in southern Turkey, but also the Iranians do as well. And so as far as Turkey is concerned, both of these countries, including Iran, which supports Hamas, is trying to destabilize the nation of Turkey. And yet, nonetheless, they still sit there and decide to support a group that is run by Iran. It really makes no sense even on a Turkish end. It's almost like they're supporting their own inevitable demise at this point. And it also goes completely against the interests of the Western world on top of that. So very odd to see, and of course Israel reacted nearly immediately, and we haven't seen an international reaction to this at the moment, but I'm expecting that it will be coming around or down the pipe quite soon. Moving on into Israel, the fighting inside of the Gaza Strip has become a lot more serious today, and we're going to be trying to draw up our first front lines on this stream tonight of what we've been able to find and what we've been able to assess of the ongoing fighting inside of the Gaza Strip and also within the West Bank. Right now, at the moment, Israeli forces have been inside of the Gaza Strip, the northern Gaza Strip, for nearly 24 hours, or really around 26 hours at this point. Israeli forces have met heavy resistance in the village of Beit Hanoun, which is right outside of the city of Gaza itself, and it does appear that Hamas is continuing to fire rockets into Israel during this ongoing ground offensive. And the Israelis are also continuing to conduct airstrikes on Hamas locations within the northern Gaza Strip. And they are also begging for the citizens of Palestine in the northern Gaza Strip to flee further south and on into the area of Khan Yunis, which is on the southern end of the Gaza Strip. Many people have also been having a lot of questions and a lot of statements about this, and tonight we will be going through, after our frontline and battle analysis, what has been going on with the Palestinians inside of the Gaza Strip and what their future looks like due to external situations that are involving Egypt. Moving on into southern Lebanon first, however, Hezbollah has continued to conduct its attacks against Israeli forces on the northern Israeli border today, and this has been met with further Israeli Air Force airstrikes into the area of southern Lebanon. Currently, the Israelis, according to the Israeli Defense Forces, in response to 3 rocket launches from Lebanon, are currently striking Hezbollah terrorist targets inside of the country. We do not know if these have been successful at the moment. We do not know what kind of damage has been caused against Hezbollah, but nevertheless, it does appear that the war has certainly started to extend into the area of southern Lebanon. From what we understand, this area is encompassing all the way from Tyre, or if that's how we actually pronounce it, and all the way across, almost in a line directly east through this area of the southern part of the country. Israeli activity has not expanded beyond that area at the moment from what we've been able to tell, but of course that's just based off of the information we have at the moment. And we won't really know a lot about the situation because not a lot of news is coming out from southern Lebanon or northern Israel on the exact details of Israeli Defense Forces actions in the area. However, inside the West Bank, we are getting a much clearer story of what's starting to occur in this area, and it does appear that a large amount of people are starting to join the Hamas resistance inside of the West Bank, and they're beginning to engage Israeli Defense Forces that are moving in and trying to arrest Hamas leaders that are currently within the West Bank. The most notable example that we've been able to get of this over the past 24 hours has been in the area of Jenin, where we saw that heavy fighting was occurring in between Israeli defense forces and Hamas fighters within the town. Apparently, this began after an Israeli armored convoy moved into the town and was ambushed by Hamas forces. The ensuing firefight was inconclusive, and we're not entirely sure who was able to win, but the sounds of heavy firefights did resonate through the town. That's the end of that clip, but still fairly odd to see that the Hamas resistance is growing, at least from what we understand inside of the West Bank. For the first 2 weeks, we really saw no Hamas activity on an armed level inside of the West Bank, but it does appear as time goes by, there is a growing force of armed terrorists inside of the West Bank that support Hamas that are beginning to fight on their behalf, maybe even as a direct part of Hamas. Based off of this, Israeli activities inside the West Bank and further incursions are most likely necessary to make sure to take control of the situation and to also ensure that further attacks by Hamas, such as in unexpected directions, like directly onto Tel Aviv, right across the West Bank border, may be a needed necessity by the Israeli Defense Forces to make sure that they maintain control of the ongoing situation. Meanwhile, inside the city of Tel Aviv, we did see that, unfortunately, another rocket from Hamas did land within the city. And a picture surfaced of this showing the fire, and we also got another video from the Israel war room showing another fire that was occurring within the area of Tel Aviv. This fire was occurring directly inside of a residential building, apparently the rocket slamming right inside of it. We do not know the fate of the occupants of the building. That's the end of that clip. Of course, very unfortunate to see, and terrible to know that once again, Hamas is going out of its way to target civilians directly in the war. And it's not; these aren't even close to being military targets. There's no way, and it's something that is very discouraging to see, and it's something that is also quite annoying to me as well, to see that Israel responds to Hamas attacks, and people act like that's unjustified. And then we watch as Hamas continues to go out of their way to attack Israeli citizens and Israeli civilians that are unarmed and defenseless and living nearly 40 to 60 miles away from anywhere near the Gaza Strip. And when they're attacked and when they may possibly be wounded and killed, I have seen that here in the Western world, sometimes people have the reaction of they deserve that. Who deserves that? Whoever deserves for their house to be blown up when they're not even near any kind of a military installation or even a part of the military at all? That's absolutely ridiculous. That would be like saying the people in Ukraine deserve for a missile to land through their roof because there may be an army installation somewhere around there, or the Russians don't like, the Ukrainian government, therefore the citizens are targets as well. That's never been the rule inside of Ukraine. That shouldn't be the rule in any war, and it's absolutely ridiculous to see that Israeli citizens are continuously being targeted. The Hamas is going out of their way to try and attack these people directly, not the military. Of course, just like the Russians, they'd rather not fight the Israeli army. They'd rather try and attack the innocent Israeli citizens themselves and end up killing them. I think that's just absolutely ridiculous to see, and hopefully the Israelis can find these Hamas terrorists that are conducting these attacks and hold them accountable. We also saw something very similar in Be'er Sheva as well, as rockets started to land inside of this city today on top of that. And we can see the clip right here. And let me rewind that to the start. When you see the explosion over there on the side of the building, and we can see it once more, a second time. And that's the end of the clip. It's, of course, just the worsening to think that once again, Israeli civilians are being targeted throughout this entire ordeal. And some people, of course, whenever I talk about this, I already have seen, and many people have also wanted to let us hear their opinions on why Israeli citizens deserve this kind of fate. Is because the Israelis are bad people. They took over the area. It actually wasn't theirs. It was never theirs. They don't have a right to this land. I've heard a million things like that. And I've also heard that Apparently, because of the supposed actions of the Israeli government, the Israeli citizens themselves have to be the victims of reprisals by groups that are not happy with the Israeli government's decision-making processes, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. It doesn't. And it's something that I just find absolutely bizarre because isn't that line of thinking, and of course I only have a major in history, a bachelor's in history, so I don't really think I know exactly, of course. I'm sure someone out there who just reads books for fun probably knows a lot more than me. But isn't that the exact same line of reasoning that Hitler used before World War II to justify the Holocaust? Is to say that the Jewish people were bad people, they were taking away German jobs, controlling German industries, these were bad people, and therefore every single Jewish person in Europe deserved the wrath of the German people? Isn't that the exact same thing they said? Because if I remember correctly, it was. It was literally the exact same thing. It's just that the groups were slightly different. And it's something bizarre to me to see that it's once again coming around the bend, and people sometimes are cheering this on, which is just absolutely crazy to me. But moving on from that and into the area,
I personally think that neither side in any situation deserves to get blasted, even if sometimes it's deserved. It's just war is not a preference. That should never be our preference. But sometimes you have to do it because people force you into a corner. But under no circumstance in fighting the war should you delve into being a savage and going after civilians that are totally innocent, have no involvement in anything. Why not just keep the war confined to the combatants? When you see people going outside of the accepted rules of war, those are people that are sick, they're evil, and they don't care about fairness or anything like that. They're just simply looking to hurt the people they don't like, and immediately that's the wrong side to be on.
and I would completely agree with that. And let me try and compare this to something for our American viewers, because it seems as though, to be quite honest, it's a very divisive topic in the United States. And it's something that I've seen doesn't even follow any kind of boundaries or lines that are already laid out in the U.S., where you usually see that one group supports one thing and one group supports the other. Honestly, it's kind of a mixed bag with who supports Israel and who supports Palestine at the moment. But let's just go back to 9/11 for a moment, because this is also a pretty good example as well. Al-Qaeda hated American involvement in the Middle East at all, even though it was quite limited before the invasion of Iraq in the early 2000s, and also the invasion of Afghanistan as well. But they didn't really like America. They hated America because, we had meddled in Middle Eastern affairs for a little bit, and we were the symbol of everything they hated. So instead of attacking, the U.S. military or something like that, they go and attack the World Trade Center instead and end up killing around 2,200 innocent people. Now, if we go off of the same logic that a lot of people are using against Israel, that means that was completely justified and America shouldn't have even reacted at all. In fact, we should have bent into these people's demands and we should have withdrawn from everything around the world and just let whatever happen. Then that seems a little silly to me, don't y'all think? To think that a country could have its citizens slaughtered by the thousands over an instant, and then everyone acts like it's uncouth for them to respond. And I'm not trying to push anything onto anyone, but whenever you think about that from a logical standpoint and you apply the same line of thinking that people are pushing onto Israel about how they shouldn't respond to the Hamas attack onto different situations, it doesn't make any sense at all, and it just completely falls apart as a logic or a line of reasoning to work with as far as the Israelis should be reacting to this. And on top of that, not only are these and also let me go about this a better way of saying this. Some people are saying that the Hamas rockets that are landing in Israel are only killing or wounding a few people. It's no big deal because it's only killing a few of them, and it could be a lot worse, so why don't they just turn a blind eye to it? Well, that's largely because, like this video showed just a few hours ago, the Israeli Iron Dome system is continuing, like over the city of Ashdod, to intercept incoming Hamas rockets and shoot most of them down before they can land onto an Israeli house. We can see the Iron Dome firing off its missiles to intercept the incoming Hamas rockets. That's the end of that clip, but of course showing the continued Hamas rocket attacks that are even occurring just a few hours ago, and Israel's response to continuously shoot as many of them down as possible. This now moves...
side note, I'm always shocked to see, because for some reason in my mind, I didn't think Israel was very modern looking, but every time you see a picture of their cities or anything, they always look very modern. Like that video was taken from some kind of like high-rise apartment or something. And it's just surprising to see because I really didn't see a ton of pictures of Israel like their normal cities before this war broke out.
And they're a very modern and advanced country. That's also why they have a very high GDP as well for their size. But they are quite advanced, and also that's why they have things like the Iron Dome, is because they are advanced enough and have a good enough GDP to be able to afford that sort of stuff. But moving on...
some monies.
But moving on into the northern Gaza Strip really quickly, because this is something that I've also seen some people arguing in the chat. It's an interesting argument, is that because Hamas is a terrorist organization and they attacked 1,500 Israeli civilians and killed them, Israel shouldn't respond because half of the Gaza Strip is kids under the age of 18. And that's an interesting argument, one that, of course, needs to be looked at a little bit. But my counter argument to that would be, if that's the case, and everyone cares about these kids, and of course the Palestinians care about these kids and whine and moan and complain that the Israelis are bombing their kids in northern Gaza, how come they will not listen to the leaflets that are being dropped by the Israeli military that are saying, urgent warning to the residents of the Gaza Strip, Gaza government has become a battlefield, shelters in the northern Gaza Strip and Gaza government are unsafe, you must evacuate immediately and head to the areas south of Wadi Gaza, the Israeli Defense Forces. How come no one's listening to these leaflets? That's my question. Because the kids do have a place to go. All of the innocent civilians in the northern Gaza Strip do have a place to go. That's further south. They have an option to pack up their bags as much as they can and try and move south into the area of Khan Yunis. They have that option. Not only that, they also have the option, I don't know, of Hamas letting them go down there. If Hamas wasn't a terrorist group that was trying to use these innocent civilians and these kids that everyone's using as a shield, they could just say, you know what? Considering we're a terrorist group and everything, and we kind of picked this fight, let's not let the innocent kids and civilians of Palestine, as we like to call them, be the victims of a war zone, because we're going to force them to stay there. Instead, let's open up the roads and let's let them move south, so that way they'll be outside of the battlefield. Why not? Well, because Hamas is a terrorist group, and they're going to use these people as human shields, and it forces the Israeli Defense Forces' hand, because unlike in other situations where Russia would roll over a place in Ukraine and they wouldn't even allow civilians to evacuate or give them the chance, Israel even now, just a few hours ago, is still dropping leaflets into this area of Gaza telling these people to move south. Has anyone ever seen anything like that from the Russians before? No. So how in the world are people trying to compare Israel to the Russians? They are going out of their way to try and make sure that people who can evacuate will evacuate. And the only reason from here forward that you will ever see a Palestinian civilian getting caught in a bombing by the Israeli Air Force is because they didn't evacuate from the northern Gaza Strip, which is now a war zone, and Hamas didn't allow them to evacuate from the northern Gaza Strip, which is now a war zone, and these people are stuck there. Largely by Hamas's own fruition, and even sometimes by the Palestinians' own will as well. And it really removes, from my point of view, the argument that these people, well, that Israel can't invade because these civilians are there. They're clearly being used at this point as human shields. And what is the Israeli Defense Forces supposed to do? Are they supposed to just sit there and wait idly by until they, I don't know, run across the border again and kill another 2,000 Israeli civilians? What then? It makes no sense. And so, with that, I hope we covered that fairly well, because this is something that is a little interesting to me, because a lot of y'all are seeing on the mainstream news all over the place, really it's everywhere, that the Palestinians, all the poor Palestinians, look at all of these civilians in the northern Gaza Strip, they're being caught in a war zone. This is terrible. Why would Israel put them in this? Why are they in it? I mean, Israel has given them the option for weeks at this point and has clearly told them, this place is about to be a war zone, y'all need to leave. You know, and that's what happens. A war, if a war is inevitable, and it's going to happen, which wars will happen, it's a pretty high-level move to sit there and say to everyone, this is about to happen. We're giving y'all an option to leave. And also, I see I just saw someone say in the live chat, you're acting like evacuating millions of people is as simple as running to the grocery store. Well, you're kind of right. Yeah, it is kind of like running to the grocery store a little bit, because the humanitarian issue that we're going to be seeing in the Gaza Strip, numbers-wise, isn't even going to be close to the humanitarian crisis that came out of Ukraine. 8 million Ukrainians fled Ukraine in the first few months of the war and ended up in countries like Poland and many others. And somehow, some way, oddly enough, it was like going to the grocery store, because they just kind of moved into Poland, and these millions of people that just influxed into Poland didn't even really create a massive strain onto the logistical structures there. And Poland was more than happy to be able to accept these people and keep them there indefinitely. There are still millions of Ukrainian refugees inside of Poland to this day, 2 years after the war started, and nobody is batting an eye. And then when a war starts,
and also they're not going very far. Gaza is not a big place, so when they have to travel, it's not like they're going, across the country like with the United States or something. But the problem is the terrorists block the roads and they won't let them out. And they don't care about children or women or anybody, because they're literally, sending these children out with explosives. Just to not get too deep into it, they don't care about children. They don't care about anyone.
And also, I'm seeing some more interesting comments. Imagine to expect them to evacuate their homes because Israel dropped papers. Well, I would, because if you hear a war is coming or a hurricane is coming and people are telling you gotta leave, you don't get to sit there and go, no, actually, I'm going to have the whole world and geopolitical events revolve around me because I don't want to leave my house. Well, then you should expect that when it becomes a battlefield, there's probably going to be artillery shells raining down around your house because it's now a war zone. I mean, a war, you can't sit there and go, oh, you know what, everyone, war's called off. I know a terrorist operation just happened against their country, but some people decide not to leave their homes, so we're not going to have the war today. These people have been giving them heads-up notice. The Israelis have been letting them know for a very long time at this point that the war is coming. Now the war is here. They're still telling them to leave, and these people either aren't wanting to leave or Hamas isn't allowing them to leave because they want to use them as shields. This is as simple as just getting these people to pack up and move. It happened with the Ukrainians. It happened with 8 million of them, which everyone's going to act like now didn't happen. That 8 million Ukrainians got moved nearly flawlessly to other countries outside of Ukraine. It didn't even impose a strain on most of these countries. They're still there. 8 million Ukrainian citizens around the world, mostly in Eastern Europe, and they're all perfectly provided for. But moving 2 million Gazans out of Gaza, which is a quarter of that number, into Egypt seems like a damn near impossible task. Why? It's not an impossible task. And on top of that, another thing that's really screwing this whole situation over is that everyone goes, well, what do you expect them to do? Leave Gaza? The Israelis closed all of it off. No, they didn't, because part of the border is on the Egyptian border, and the Egyptians closed their own border to the Gazans because they don't want them in Egypt, because the Egyptians, quote unquote, said, oh, well, this could be a massive strain on us because we don't want to end up supporting these people indefinitely if the war goes on for years. What the hell? Like, what kind of line of reasoning is this? Everyone acts like, oh my lord, look at this. Everyone, including Egypt, says it's a humanitarian crisis. And then when Egypt gets the chance to help these people out if they want to, then Egypt goes, you know what, that's a little too difficult. We'd rather just let them stay in what we're going to call a humanitarian crisis zone. What the hell? I mean, at this point, it is what it is. If these people want to stay in northern Gaza, it is a war zone. It's going to be a war zone. And that's similar to places like Bakhmut. Ukraine was evacuating Bakhmut as soon as that battle started to begin. And if people stayed there, that's beyond the Ukrainian army's concern. Those people are just going to stay, and if something happens to them, that is what it is. It's much like that in Gaza. Israel is giving them an option to leave if they stay, or if Hamas uses them as human shields and forces them to stay. There's not much that Israel can do. You can't expect them to stop their entire war, which is a defensive war that is completely justified considering what's happened to Israel. You can't expect them to stop that whole thing just because everyone's going to go, you know what, I'm going to allow myself to be a human shield so that way we can all claim victim status when the Israelis conduct the war that they said they were going to conduct. Makes no sense. And then when everyone around the world says, oh, this is a humanitarian crisis, and then we go, well, you could take them as refugees, and they go, hell no, we're never doing that. That kind of closes that option off as well. Just...
And you know why other countries do not want to take the Gaza people as refugees is because they can't differentiate between the civilians and the terrorists because they all blend in together. The Hamas aren't walking around with Hamas like on their chest or something like that, especially if they're having to leave. They're going to try to blend in with the rest of the people. And places like Egypt, they know that, and they don't want to take on that problem and risk bringing in the terrorists to their country even more than they probably are already there. So they're just rejecting them outright.
And that's something that we've been seeing. It's just, it's ridiculous, and it just blows my mind how countries like Egypt, like Jordan, say, "Oh my God, this is so bad. Who's going to come in and save these people?" And everyone goes, "Well, you have a border with them. Why don't you save them?" And they go, "Oh my God, what are you, outrageous? What the hell? You expect countries to support refugees from war zones? You're out of your mind. No one does that. Like, I don't know, Poland, and no one in the world does this kind of stuff. That's absolutely ridiculous. It's crazy. It's something that I can't even comprehend. Like, how people are just acting like refugee. You know what? I'm just gonna leave it for what it is because it's so bizarre to me. I can't even wrap my head around trying to make an argument about how people are acting like refugees are unacceptable in this war when they were in others. And on top of that, the Israelis are giving a heads up notice, and there is a clear way for these people out through Egypt, and there's also a clear way out for the people in the West Bank to Jordan. And that's what happens in a war, is refugees pop up. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But moving on from that, and that pamphlet that was put out again today by the IDF that was dropped into the city of Gaza, we're now going to be moving into the actual fighting and combat news inside the area of the Gaza Strip. Starting off, we did see that Israeli airstrikes were still being conducted against the area as they are trying to clear out Hamas posts and sites. We can hear the sound of the bombs hitting in the distance, and we can see, of course, more Israeli airstrikes occurring out there.
And also, real quick, I got to say this. I'm going to have to be sort of unfiltered on this one. For all the idiots in the chat trying to make it sound racist that the terrorists are blending in with the civilians in Gaza, you can leave the chat because we're not going to have stupidity here. The statement was clear as a bell what I said, so you're going to get banned out of the chat if you say that.
So, I mean, people are saying that terrorists that dress in civilian clothes and look like civilians and saying that they blend in with civilians is racist?
Yeah, that's a straw man argument to try to make themselves seem like they're in the right.
That's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That's like saying, "Oh, what the hell?" I'm not even getting that. So people are saying that if you dress like a civilian and you walk across the border with the rest of the civilians, although you're a militant terrorist, and then you can't be distinguished from the other people because you're dressed just like them and you don't look like an armed combatant, that's racist? That's stupid. I've never even heard an argument that stupid before in my life. And here goes people with the little straw man arguments that they love to throw out. That doesn't even make any damn sense. Like, I'm not even getting that one at all. But anyways, and we see the Israeli airstrikes continuing. Fancy Dancer said, "That's not how racism works." Well, apparently nowadays, if you wear the same clothes as someone and you're indistinguishable from them because of that, apparently that also falls within the umbrella now to some crazy people out there. But that's the end of the clip right here of the airstrikes occurring in the area of northern Gaza once again. And moving on to the next one, we also saw more aerial bombardments by the Israeli Air Force as they are still clearing out Hamas sites to make way for the ground invasion. This occurred a little bit later on a little bit earlier on in the day towards the break of dawn, but here's the clip. And we can see the Israeli Air Force, of course, continuing their strikes. I'm still absolutely blown away, Matthew, about that that's the stupid statements that were being made, because now that I understand why they were being said, that makes no damn sense. Because people would come back from Afghanistan and they would say, you know, asymmetrical warfare is hell because the terrorists blend in with civilians because they all wear the same clothes. I guess they're saying that that is also a racist statement now too, because, you know, you're saying that they're wearing the same clothes, so it's impossible to see that one of them's an armed combatant and one of them isn't, because they all look like civilians.
Oh yeah, that's one thing I will never be shy away from. If something is the truth, I can't help the way it's taken. If somebody is a terrorist and they take off the terrorist outfit or the uniform and then they try to blend in with civilians, it's facts. It's what they're doing. Why do you think Egypt won't take the people? That's because they can't differentiate them because they're not wearing a uniform.
Exactly. Hell, that's exactly. Oh my lord, you know. I gotta tell you all this.
Oh my lord.
Oh my lord! But I gotta tell you all this. This war has really, like, I thought the war in Ukraine was bringing out some pretty dumb arguments for people in support of Russia. But I've seen even dumber arguments in support of Hamas. And people just trying to come up with stupid crap to say. Never seen stuff like it yet.
Someone said, "Oh man."
And so with that, that's the end of the clip right there. And we're now going to be moving on from that clip. And also, someone, you know, I'm going to have to address this real quick. Someone just then said, it's Islamophobic. How? That's literally the same argument that was used for the IRA in Northern Ireland. The British Army said we can't tell them apart from the normal Northern Irish people, or Irish people for that matter, because they dress like civilians. That's not racist. They do not dress like armed combatants. You can't tell them apart from civilians. Much like the German SS would always try and switch out of their uniform and switch into civilian clothes and pray that the Allies didn't find out they were SS because they were dressed like civilians and therefore they were indistinguishable from everyone else. That's the exact same thing. The statements being made are absolutely stupid, and I'm not even going to be polite about that. That's the stupidest line of reasoning and argument I've ever seen in response to that statement. But moving on from that and into the next clip near Beit Hanoun, we also saw that Israel was inside of northern Gaza. And we see, of course, what appears to be artillery bombardments occurring, most likely by MO-109 Paladins. We now see the Israeli armored personnel carriers moving into the town, as the artillery bombardment continues in front of them, as well as tank barrages. And we now see the M109s. Oh my god! Dude, this thing just turned into a torch!
The flamethrower.
The Flammenwerfer. We see them throwing up a smoke shed, well, smoke shield, sorry, and that's the end of the clip. But still showing the actions of Israeli artillery that's supporting the ground defensive. Moving on from that and into the next clip in Beit Hanoun, we also saw more explosions and gunfire in this clip as well. This was in the early morning hours in the area of Beit Hanoun.
Like the rooster out in the distance.
Yeah. Just letting you know it's morning time and the artillery barrages are here. That's the end of that clip, but showing the ongoing battle on the outskirts of Beit Hanoun, which was ongoing this morning. Moving on from that and towards the border area of the Gaza Strip, we also saw IDF forces in what appears to be a staging area around the 27th to the 28th right here in this clip, published by the Israeli Defense Forces. Here we can see a multitude of Merkava Mark 4Ms, also accompanied by armored personnel carriers, forming a column and preparing to advance into the strip. We can also see the staging area as well right here, as observed by a drone, and we can now see them on the move and into the strip. We can also see that this column appears to be advancing very close to the shoreline, actually, so we'll have to move this clip here in a moment. We can see the Merkavas continuing to fire into the distance, providing support for the entirety of the column as they now advance into the area, and that's the end of the clip. But considering that we did see the lapping waters of the beach in one of the clips, we're actually going to move this over here to the area of As Siafa, so that way it's more related to where it exactly is. Moving on from that and into our next clip near the area of Gaza, we did see ongoing strikes here as well. And here's the clip. We see the airstrikes continuing, and then the clip ends there. But of course, showing the further actions of the Israeli Air Force against the Hamas forces. But nevertheless, that is really all of the news that we were able to get from the Israel situation and what's been going on in relation to it around the world. But there is one last thing left to cover. This is one that I've also seen has caused a lot of outrage, and something that I saw today. Matthew showed it to me. He said, "Hey, look at this." And I saw it, and it's something that was posted on Twitter that was just stupid. And I'll explain why real quick. So, of course, many of y'all know that there's a guy who runs Twitter who bought the thing a while ago, and we've largely tried to not really bash or, just go on an absolute, hounding of this person because they have different opinions than us. But they put up this meme, if you want to call it that today, on their Twitter account. And it says, "Iran wants war. Look how close they put their country to our military bases," making it sound like the U.S. is the aggressor in the area. And then I sat there and looked at this map, and I just thought, what the hell is this map? What the hell even is this? Because supposedly these flags show American military bases that are around the area of Iran, or at least near to them. And
I guess they have one in the water now too,
yeah,
like right off the coast.
Let's see here. Let's go to where that supposedly is. So apparently there's a U.S. military base right here in the middle of the the Gulf of Oman. Apparently there's one right there. Let's go back and look at that. Yep, correction. Actually, it's somewhere around here, on the middle of what appears to be some kind of a depression in the ocean. Pretty interesting to see that apparently there's now Atlantis somewhere out in the middle of the Gulf of Oman that we're operating from. Also, another interesting thing is that there are four military bases that are apparently inside of Afghanistan. And that's a little odd, considering we're not there. I was kind of a little interested in that. I don't know if y'all are as well, but it's kind of odd that we're supposedly surrounding them in Afghanistan, considering that we withdrew from Afghanistan in 2020, 2021, and we're not even there. Kind of a little odd to say we're there. And then we even...
Also, someone's saying maybe it's sarcasm. I mean, maybe. To me, I took it like a way that Elon was trying to basically take Iran's, not necessarily their side, but give some sympathy toward their direction. Because if this is some kind of like sarcasm, it went over my head.
It went completely over my head. And then on top of that, there's a base that we apparently have in Turkmenistan, which doesn't even exist either. On top of that, there's just a whole bunch of bases here that also don't exist in real life either. We don't really have many bases in Saudi Arabia. We kind of loan their bases or just have contingents of our forces on their bases at the moment, as well as the UAE, so they're not even official bases, they're just US forces there. And also, the whole damn map is wrong. There are no official US military bases in most of these places except for Kuwait. There is an American military base there, but there are camps inside of Syria, so they're not actual bases. And also on top of that, another thing that I have to put into context is that this is also heavily skewed, because there are only 5,200 U.S. soldiers inside of Iraq right now. And it's trying to make it look like we surround them with like this massive force. There are only like 5,200 people in Iraq, and that's really the only country that directly borders Iran. So if you wanted to make the argument, there's like maybe a little bit more than an American brigade that is near the Iranian border, if at all. And it doesn't even make any sense to make that sound like we're trying to like menace them or anything. And on top of that, aren't they a terrorist government that's kind of been in control and oppressing their own people for about the past 40 years? Even if we did surround them like this map is trying to indicate, wouldn't that kind of be a good thing and show that we're trying to face down dictators and terrible people in the world and make sure that they're contained to where they are? I feel like it would be a good thing, but apparently, according to the great overlord of Twitter, it apparently isn't. And it's starting to show a little bit of a trend nowadays that this guy is taking some of the worst takes you can ever imagine, you can ever have on any situation, leaning a little bit towards the Russians nowadays, we see Squiddy, and also starting to lean a little bit more in the direction of Hamas and a terrorist state like Iran. So pretty interesting. Also, another thing I'd like to point out, didn't y'all remember that just a few months ago, everyone was wanting Iran to be labeled a terrorist state because they were giving weapons to the Russians, which are being used against the Ukrainians? And now that the Iranians support Hamas, everyone's acting like the Iranians are a sympathetic underdog in the world. Has anyone noticed how that flip has just kind of happened and no one's really even cared to notice that? Because I've been noticing it, and it's kind of a little silly for everyone to clearly know this country is a terrorist country, and then for everyone to then go, oh, well, you know what, they actually got a point now. You know, they can support terrorists around the world like Russia, Hamas, and Hezbollah. They're great. They're great people. They're just a little misunderstood. But anyways, moving on from that, that's all the news we have from the Middle East today. I just thought that was so ridiculous I had to show it to y'all, even though it isn't really news. But moving on from that and into Ukraine, we have a lot to cover here. But Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so moving into our first poll and question segment, we have some really good polls to address, and all of the critters have answered these polls. It looks like our first one says, if you suspect a major conflict will break out, how do you prepare? 48% said I continue as normal status quo, 23% said I start stockpiling, aka prepping, 25% said I do some prepping, but not much, and 4% said unsure. And for me personally, I do a little bit of that prepping. It's nothing wrong with doing it. I don't make fun of people that do prep because I do a little bit of it. But I would say not too much. I don't go overboard or anything like that. I don't like create like a stock house or a storehouse, in the ground or anything like that and start stacking up cans of beans. I do have some stockpile of stuff like food and stuff like that, but not like, a ton of it. But Enforcer, how do you feel about that?
I'm not really that big of a prepper. Of course, don't make fun of people who do prep because, that's your thing. It's America, do what you want. But I'm not really a big fan of it because I honestly feel like it would be pointless in a situation where that is needed because food stores would run out pretty quickly. There's not really a lot to eat out there. And I know a lot of people just think you can live off of the fat of the land or something like of mice and men, but that doesn't actually happen. It usually is just, you starve to death. But still, that's just my take on it. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Now, I did know of some guy, I think he was former military, he had gone out and bought bulk beans, dried, I think kidney beans or something. He'd buy them in bulk and he would bury them in the backyard. I don't think that's a good idea because if the beans get wet, you're in trouble. But if you want to stack some beans up or something, you can go for it. I just don't think there will ever be a point in the United States where we completely run out of food, because even if we have to ration like we've done in the past, there will still be food around. You just won't be able to gorge on it, but you'll still be able to survive because there will be food around to get. I just don't think we'll get to a point where we're literally scraping, bugs off the ground to eat it or something like that. But anyways, moving on from that poll and on to our next one, it says Kim Jong-un from North Korea, if you didn't know, says the Third World War is about to start, and do you think he will start it? 43% said no, North Korea won't start it. 30% said yes, North Korea is a prime candidate. 18% said World War III isn't going to happen, and 9% said unsure. And on this one, Kim Jong-un, he is a candidate to start it, but I don't think he is ballsy enough to actually start it. He's obviously a nut. He talks a big game, but he's not really ready to die, I don't think. Because Kim Jong likes his power. He is living in a palace, after all, while he's oppressing all the people in his country. And he's not ready to basically, end the world. And I'm not even really sure if they have the ability to do that successfully. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say he's certainly not going to be the guy to do it, because isn't he always out there running his mouth like that about every day at this point? And he wouldn't do it. He's too scared, and also he knows that North Korea really doesn't have the ability to follow through on any of that. I'm largely of the mindset, outside of the Chinese, which are starting to grow to be a serious threat to the United States, almost everyone that does not like the United States and is our rival around the world is practically insignificant. The Russians have proven that in Ukraine. The North Koreans proved that just by existing. And the Iranians are a joke, because if you ever look at their navy, it's just speedboats. And they've never really been able to get more than that. Almost everyone that we deal with is a joke, and North Korea is certainly one of them. The only thing that makes them slightly serious is that they have nuclear weapons and a few intercontinental ballistic missiles. And that's the only thing that gives them teeth. Beyond that, they are a straight-up joke, in my opinion. I don't really think that they would be the one to start a world war. I honestly think that a world war would most likely start in the Middle East. It's a strategically important location for everyone. That's why we see the US, of course, involved in the Middle East. We see China getting involved in the Middle East. And we also see the Russians trying to exert influence over the Middle East as well. Everyone has their finger in that pie, because it is, without a doubt, one of the most strategically important areas on Earth as far as the resources are concerned, such as the oil. And everyone says that as a joke. Everyone always jokes about, oh, America's around for the oil. Everyone's around for the oil. Oil is the blood of the world that makes things work. If it wasn't for oil, world economies would come grinding to a halt tomorrow. And it is always important to try and make sure that the flow of oil is going towards one's friends and themselves rather than other people, even if it means having to buy it from countries like inside the Middle East instead of producing it domestically. And that is a big concern, and that is why I think if any world war was to break out, it most likely will occur over the Middle East, because there are just so many people who have interests in the Middle East. None of them clearly have obvious control. Like in Europe, NATO is obviously in control. There's no doubt about that. It's uncontested control. In East Asia, it's largely the Chinese who are mostly in control, but there's also a pretty decent American presence there. But there's clear groups of control. Unlike the Middle East, where there is no clear group of control. There is no American alliance in the Middle East. America has an alliance with Israel, but there is no hard and set alliance with really any other country there. Iraq is kind of just a friend a little bit. Saudi Arabia is kind of on the fence. The UAE is kind of nice to us, but, they're kind of nice to everyone. And then beyond that, our relations with most other countries, except for Bahrain, which we are on good terms with, it's kind of iffy. So you can see there is no clear control by the US, by China, or by Russia, and so this would be the most volatile area where a world war probably could start, because there's no clear lines drawn, and because of that, there's a lot of times where people might start to step on each other's toes, and a war begins there. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And our last poll says, what is Turkey doing by fully putting its support behind Palestine and Hamas and calling Israel evil? It looks like 41% said Turkey was never our friend. 33% said Turkey is changing into an enemy. 16% said Turkey is just talking and no worries. And 10% said unsure. And we all know that Turkey has been on the fence between dictatorship and democracy for a long time. That's why they've always been kind of riding the fence on the Ukraine war and Russia situation, because they really can't commit to either side. And it appears that Turkey in the Israel situation is committing to a side, and it's the wrong side. And the statements that Erdogan has made about the Hamas terrorist group, basically fighting for their freedom and things like that, and sympathetic to their cause, is very concerning. And it gives you a look into the political situation inside of Turkey, which is apparently not that good when it comes to supporting democracy. So I think that Turkey is changing into an enemy. And even though Turkey is somewhat Western aligned to an extent, that can change. It's changed in the past, and it can change now. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say there's no doubt about it. Turkey is starting to move in a direction that's not good for us. Turkey is trying to prioritize its own sphere building to the point it's compromising Western security. And that's not just for America. That's, of course, for everyone in Europe as well. It's compromising Europe's security. It's compromising America's security. It's compromising East Asian security. I wouldn't doubt it that they start to move directly into a Chinese direction after this, just so that way they can get in on some of that economic quick bucks and then get tied in forever to the Chinese through debt. That's something that I could honestly see happening here in the near future because of how things are starting to unfold. And going off of that, I think either we need to start making it quite clear that there's going to be hard lines drawn with Turkey, or we need to possibly see about just cutting them off, because it's ridiculous how this has been unfolding with Turkey. Turkey was a secular country for 100 years, since the actual foundation of Turkey. There's been no Turkey before this. Before this, it was the Ottoman Empire, and for the past 100 years, Turkey has acted like the Ottoman Empire isn't even them, and it really wasn't, because they didn't even act like it. And what's even crazier about this is that Erdogan decided to give this speech, this very secular and very religious speech, at the Ataturk International Airport. And Ataturk is the founding father of the modern state of Turkey, the way it exists for the past 100 years. And Turkey, through that time, was a secular country on the national level. The church was completely divided from the state, and the state was completely divided from the church. And that was the way Turkey has operated since 1921. And up until now, that has been a great way for Turkey to run. It largely kept it in line with other Western countries, helped them to get economic benefits from the rest of the Western world, helped them to be a part of NATO. If it wasn't for that, Turkey wouldn't have been what it was for the past 100 years. And now Erdogan wants to come in and just sweep all of that off the table and take Turkey down a cultural route that they're not even a part of, just so that way they can try and sphere build in the Middle East. And that also completely ties into the idea he only supports Ukraine because that's a part of sphere building. Because all of Ukraine's trade after the war is going to be moving through the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles through Turkey. And so for that reason, they're going to be heavily tied in to the Turks. And the Turks are probably supporting Ukraine, so that way at the end of the war, who knows, maybe they can sweep them into a Turkish sphere of influence that is in this area of Asia Minor. Who knows? It doesn't look like Turkey has good intentions, though, anymore. That is quite clear. And I would have to say this is something that the U.S. needs to pay attention to seriously, and we need to start putting a lot of diplomatic efforts and attention towards that direction. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and with that being said, that was our last poll to address. So we are moving on into our super chat questions, and we've gotten some really good ones tonight. And our first one goes to Harvey the Drummer, longtime channel legend, and he throws in a $50 donation. And huge shout out to you, Harvey, and he is a fellow drummer. Probably much better than me because I kind of suck now as I forgot how to do it. But thank you very much, Harvey, for the support. He says, I wish Elon would stop saying such dumb crap and deliver my Cybertruck that I ordered 4 years ago.
Oh, man. That is a real roast. Thank you for the support, Harvey the Drummer. And I also wish that Elon would stop saying dumb stuff. Don't you just like it? That was the worst way to say that in English. Didn't y'all like it when people used to just be billionaires and then they would kind of leave their opinions to themselves because their opinion is just kind of like everyone else's? I kind of liked that back in the day. I thought that was kind of nice. And I don't really think it's a good thing for many billionaires to say things and act like it has weight because they have money to back it up, and they usually can use that to shift their weight around. Because one thing that we've all started to, I think, realize is that billionaires are usually no more intelligent than the average person, clearly. And it's starting to be proven on a daily basis at this point. So I think it'd just be best if folks like him stay in their own lane, like business. Like, he does great in business. I don't think anyone can deny that. Although you have been waiting on your Cybertruck for 4 years, so I don't know. But I think it's better for people to stay in their lanes and kind of do what they're best at instead of trying to expand outwards and get involved in things that they really don't even know about. I mean, the guy, like, for everyone to say this guy's a genius, he can't even look at a freaking map and figure out that the U.S. isn't even in Afghanistan. Wasn't he talking about on Twitter just like a year or two ago? Well, yeah, it was like 2 years ago at this point. Wasn't he talking about on Twitter how it was a disaster, how the U.S. withdrew from Afghanistan? So wouldn't he know? Wouldn't that just be knowledge on his end that we're not even in Afghanistan anymore to have bases there? I mean, that feels like something he would know, and yet he put out that tweet today acting like we still have bases there, which is still stupid. It's just ridiculous. But
I
still,
think he's just doing it for attention because it doesn't make any sense, like the way he flip-flops between his opinions and stuff. Whichever opinion is the most controversial of the day, that's the one he goes with, like almost every single time, just because he's trying to get the spotlight or something. And if you want to do that, go right ahead, but just know you're not going to, get any credibility doing that.
and also Jay said it was a joke, but it wasn't really a joke. Like, it was a joke in support of like Iran. From what I could tell. And also, on top of that, to add a little bit of context, he's also offering Starlink to the Palestinians to most likely be used by Hamas, because that's how all humanitarian aid ends up when it goes into the Gaza Strip, is it just ends up getting confiscated by Hamas, and then they use it as leverage against the public in the Gaza Strip. So, going off of that, which is a clear action in support of Hamas, it also seems like that little tweet today is in support of Iran. So, just putting that out there. It's not just a tweet on its own where he's just putting out a joke. He's actually backing that up with action to support Hamas through a little bit of a trick. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Remy Andre Rogsoy Olsen. And sorry if I'm butchering that, but that is a very unique name. It's Norwegian, by the way. And they put in a $20 donation. And thank you very much for that support. And I believe that is your first super chat of the stream. I think YouTube's telling me correctly. So thank you very much for that. And they said, greetings from Bergen, Norway. And first time I'm able to be here for the live stream itself, but been watching your streams for a while now, and love your work. Keep it up. And you are both awesome waffles. Man, I'm telling you what, awesome waffle. Thank you very much. That's a high compliment.
And thank you so much for the support and helping the channel to keep on rolling, and also being from Bergen, Norway. I think we've been here before, but let me check. No, I don't think we have, but it does look beautiful, like every Norwegian town. And I gotta say, it's really nice. Graffiti here and there, but that kind of just comes with being in an urban place. Still gorgeous, though. Beautiful little city y'all have here. And also, thank you for being here for the first time live, and thank you for supporting the channel and helping us to keep this thing running. Because without folks like you who support this channel and make it possible for us to do this thing day in and day out, it wouldn't have been possible. And so, of course, thank you so much once again for being a Lee Spring Army viewer all the way from Bergen, Norway, and of course helping this channel to keep it running. And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the final one of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the Ukraine war news.
And also, by the way, before we move on to our last super chat here, I had seen on Twitter earlier, speaking of Elon Musk, that there was talks of Elon restoring Starlink connectivity to Gaza. And the context was to give the humanitarian organizations a way to communicate with the outside world again. But a lot of people were saying that that's actually going to enable the terrorists to then use that system that they've given those organizations access to use that for their own purposes instead. And I don't think there was a good reason why Musk would turn that back on, knowing that would be in the arm's reach of the terrorists. And that's just another thing with Elon. It's like, what's the logic behind any of these decisions?
And also another thing, that's actually a good point. Apparently the argument behind that is because the Gaza Strip has had all of its power, water, and a whole bunch of other utilities cut off by Israel so far. And so, oh my God, things are so terrible. Everyone please help us. But something that kind of hit me while I was hearing you say that a moment ago, because I went through that whole line of thinking in like 30 seconds, is if Palestine hates the Israelis so bad, and they act like the Israelis treat them like garbage and crap, why don't they go and, I don't know, build their own water treatment facilities and power plants, so that way they're not relying on the Israelis to run all of their utilities? That, as far as I was able to find today, they've never even paid the Israelis to run the utilities into the Gaza Strip. So the Israelis just run a loss every year, just pumping these utilities into Gaza, and then the Gazans act like they're entitled to it even when Hamas conducts a terrorist attack, and then the Israelis cut off the utilities so that way they can get back at the terrorist groups. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because if Hamas said that Israel was as bad as they are, why wouldn't they try and insulate the Palestinians in Gaza from how bad the Israeli government is by making their own utilities themselves? You know, that's kind of what just hit me right there. That's like saying that, you know, that's like being completely capable of, you know, like running a marathon or something, but you sit there and go, "Oh, that asshole over there, he won't win the gold medal for me because, you know, I told him that he was an idiot. So he won't run the marathon for me and win the gold medal. What an asshole." It's like, why don't you like get up and run the marathon yourself? And also, A.F. Kaplan just said Hamas doesn't concern itself with infrastructure. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like these people, for as much as they hate Israel, they do nothing to try and pull themselves away from Israel. It would be an entirely different story if, I don't know, the Israelis like hit their own water treatment plant or blew up a power plant that the Palestinians owned and operated. That would be a totally different story. Then I would say that's pretty jacked up for them to do that. And then, but then at the same time, they sit there and go, you know what, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to be completely reliant on Israeli infrastructure. And if we attack them and they cut it off, then we'll play victim. It doesn't make any sense. I don't even think I have to go any further than that. But with that,
It doesn't make any sense. And another catch is, look at, I know some people argue and some people say, no, I didn't think that at all. But if you have large amounts of money like Elon Musk has, even though he's not an elected official or he's not in the government, with that amount of money that he has and the infrastructure he's created, he can actually influence world and foreign policy to a great extent, because the government has to, like now they're making decisions to Starlink in Ukraine, I believe. That was the last report that came out. Elon turned that over to them. But now in Gaza, Musk has the ability to either turn on Starlink or turn it off at his will, and that can change the entire outlook of foreign policy for the United States just because he can make that sole decision. It's wild. Like, if you can just get some certain infrastructure set up, then you can have a pretty large say over things in the world, like Elon's doing.
I would have to agree with that as well. And also, I saw someone say this, Matthew. Let's see. Someone said, "Come on, man. Gaza has one power plant, but shut down due to no fuel." Is that so? Well, let's pull that up. Gaza power plant. Let's see here. So Gaza's only power station, so they have one, and it stopped working after fuel needed for generating electricity ran out on Wednesday. Let's see, it comes 2 days, said it would order a complete siege. Let's see. People in Gaza still use power generators for electricity, but with a blockade on all sides of the border, including Egypt, apparently, the fuel needed for generators to work is running out. The health ministry warned that hospitals are set up to run out of fuel on Thursday, although they never have, from what we found out. Let's see here. They're not telling us exactly the name of this power plant. I'm trying to find what kind of fuel it runs off of. Let's see here. Let's see here. How many power plants are in Gaza? It is the Gaza Power Generating Company. So let's see what power plant they have. Let's see. Fuel for the Gaza power plant in response to this and that. The Jenin power plant. What is this? The Jenin power plant is planned as a gas-fired power plant with a generation capacity of 450 megawatts, supplied from natural gas from the Gaza Marine Gas Field, which is a field off the coast of the Gaza Strip. And just to make sure that we're looking at the right power plant, let's see. This looks as though, and let me see, power generation expected to commence at the end of 2023. So based off of what I'm reading here, they're building a power plant that should have been operational right now, that is entirely self-sufficient on its own and runs on natural gas found in Gaza. So then that argument falls apart that the Israelis are cutting them off from the gas, even if you want to go there, because now they have a power plant that runs off of their own domestic supply of gas. So they're just complaining to complain at this point, because they have all of the abilities and the options to fix the issues they complain about, yet they don't. They just decide to complain. But anyways, with that, we do have to move on to the last question and get on into the Ukraine news, because of course the Israeli segment has gone on for a while. And so with that, we are on to the last question of this segment.
All right, and the last one of this segment goes to Blue Flam 777, longtime channel viewer, and he puts in a $100 donation. And a huge shout out to you, Blue Flam, for that very generous support, and we do appreciate it very much. It helps to keep the whole thing running.
Hey!
And Blue Flam says, he doesn't like what YouTube does to channels, he says, in a very creative way. And he says, 1/3 is not a normal business cut. It's mafia tactics, he says. And love you both. And Elon sold flamethrowers to civilians, a hypocrite, and questioned the chat. And I will say, Blue Flame, on that one thing. I'm going to refrain from commenting on the YouTube thing just because of conflict of interest there. But on the flamethrowers, they were basically like barbecue grill, like fire starter type deals. They weren't real flamethrowers. But I get your point. I'm not sure if that was a joke or not. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I think it was support Blue Flam, and also, you know, I get what you're saying, Matthew, but at the same time, he did market them as flamethrowers, which I've got to be
Not
honest.
a flamethrower.
If those things were, well, you know, he called them flamethrowers. You know, like
he said it's called not a flamethrower.
well, you know, yeah, everyone knew what it was. You know, he was like, "Hey, buy a flamethrower," but it's not a flamethrower. Hee hee. See what I'm doing here? And then it's like a freaking Bunsen burner on the front of like a gun looking thing. That is kind of a little hypocritical, though, and you know, it is what it is. Honestly, I when I saw what it actually was, because everyone was like, "Oh my god, wait a minute, he's coming out with a flamethrower," and then he showed it, and it's like a freaking large like lighter, and I'm like, "No, I'm not getting that." And then everyone bought it. It's like, why in the world are people buying this thing? It's not a flamethrower. It's not even that cool. It's just a little lamp. But anyways, I do thank you so much once again for the support, Blue Flam. And of course, I'm not really going to try and comment on the YouTube thing either, because it also seems as though YouTube doesn't really like the direction we're taking with reporting on this entire situation in the Middle East, because for some reason they've been coming down on us a little bit hard lately, like last night where they decided to age restrict us, although we didn't show anything that was age restricted. And so, you know, of course, that's going on. But still, thank you for the support, and thank you for helping the channel to keep on running, Blue Flam, because the support means a great deal to us, and of course, it helps us to keep this channel rolling. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be on air here tonight. And of course, we are greatly appreciative to everyone who supports the channel, because without y'all, we wouldn't even be able to run it. And so with that, we are now moving on out of the question segment and on into the Ukraine war news. I'm going to be honest with y'all. We're going to have to try and figure out a way to make the segments a lot shorter, because I feel like the Israel-Palestine segment, no matter how short we were trying to make it, because this one was actually exceptionally short, they're becoming incredibly long. It was an hour and a half long tonight, so we're going to have to try and find a way to start cutting it down so that way we can get to the Ukraine war news, or start moving the Ukraine war news to the front. Although, the thing is that as far as we make our titles, the Israel war news is a lot more pressing at the moment, just off of the severity of it, than really anything happening in Ukraine at the moment. So Israel comes first in the title, and that leads a lot of people to expect that we'll cover the Israel war news first on the stream, and so that's why we've been doing that. But this is taking so long to cover, I feel like we need to move this to the back and then move Ukraine back up to the front every single night. But we'll have to figure that out, because it's eating up a lot of time. And also, I'm getting more and more exhausted because our streams are becoming 3 hours long again, and they're going marathon length. And it's, you know, of course, getting quite exhausting. We are human. We can only do this for so long. But with that, we're moving on to the area of the Bryansk Oblast, as we saw some footage today come out of a border raid that occurred in September of 2023, but the footage just came out today. We hear the ringing of a church bell as these soldiers start to move through the oblast. And we now see a village that they're moving into. And George, I'd have to agree, that's also kind of the point why the Israel war news has been coming first lately, because a lot of people, and this, I'm going to be quite honest as this video clip plays and you'll watch it, a lot of people have been saying that we have been sensationalizing what has been going on in the war in Ukraine. And to be entirely honest, it's kind of gotten to the point where we almost have to do that, because there's not really a lot going on frontline-wise in Ukraine. It's almost static at this point. And, you know, we were always trying to stay positive and support the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian people. But when a war in Israel is going on that's a lot more pressing on an international scale, you know, and it's a very fluid one that has a lot of moving parts at the moment, it largely beats out us moving into the Ukraine war news and going, okay, everyone, like, one front line moved 10 meters today, 700 Russians died, and the Ukrainians are holding the line again, and it's a stalemate again today. And of course, it's incredibly important. I don't want anyone to think that we're not saying that, because we are. But at the same time, it's very hard to make that the pressing breaking news of the day, considering that the front lines are kind of starting to stagnate at this point. We're not really seeing a lot of progress. But we see here the Legion fighting in the area. And also, Magic Forest, you're correct as well. A lot of it's just coming to a stall because of the weather. And so, in the middle of this poor weather, there's a lot going on in the Middle East. And so, it kind of makes sense to put that to the forefront while Ukraine is kind of getting ready for the next chapter of the war, which will be the winter fighting of 2023 to 2024. But we can see the volunteer putting down his smoking barrel into the grass, which kind of concerns me. I guess he's probably going to start creating a fire. But we can now see them moving on along.
You know, I'm not really sure if the Ukraine war becoming stagnant is a good thing or a bad thing, because are the well, we don't get Ukrainian losses. That's the only thing that we don't know. But the Russian losses are high. So even though it's stagnant, there's still clearly a lot of fighting going on, but they're really not making any progress.
Oh, and that's true. But I honestly think it's a bad thing because with this war dragging out, it's most likely going to start becoming a purely economical war, and then it may also just turn into a mega Donbass for as long as we can see. I don't think it's good for the war in Ukraine to stagnate, but at the same time, it is, and sadly, we don't really get a lot of control over this, and then that dictates how we cover the news. Just trying to be as transparent as possible with y'all as to why the Israel news segment is coming first most of the time these days. But we, of course, are still continuing to cover this war. Moving on to the...
In one sentence, what is needed to break the stalemate, in your opinion?
In one sentence, let me try and come up with one.
Is it the F-16s or what is needed?
Overwhelming air superiority. I think that would be the answer. With that, I hope that puts it in mind what I think it should be, because we know that air superiority, now I'm going to go on a rabbit hole, so I'm going to make this very short. Air superiority, big bombs, dropped on Russians, clears the way, we can destroy SAM sites, clear out the air so that we can destroy the Russians on the ground, Ukrainian ground forces move forward a lot quicker. So that's honestly the quickest breakdown I can make of it. I think that'll certainly make the war in Ukraine a lot more fluent. Moving on from that, we also saw in the location unknowns that Ukraine got this thing today. It's a little old. It's an MG34, chambered in 7.92 by 57 millimeter Mauser, and pretty interesting and pretty unique, because I shot this thing's brother today. I shot the MG42 today before we were on air, and it's a good machine gun, but this one in particular is incredibly old, so I don't know how that's going to work. Best of luck to him. It's still a pretty good machine gun. And also, Angry and Penguin said MG3. Nope, this is the MG34. Hold on. This thing is ancient. This thing was in use before World War II started in limited numbers. But it is a machine gun, and these things are damn well good. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip. And also, you know, Matthew, I was just thinking, I do have those clips. I have that clip of me firing the MG42 today. I wonder if there would be a way for me to get that onto the Discord here, but I'll have to see about that. Anyways, moving on from that and on into the next clip, we also saw a new Ukrainian unit that's been made up of Siberians, which was very interesting. Also, by the way, it's not just Siberians. It's called the Siberian Battalion, but it's made up of Tatars, Yakuts, Buryats, Kalmyks, and Tuvans. So here's the clip. I'm very ashamed of the crimes committed by Russia and Russians, including my people. Every Russian is involved in this. They are not heroes, they are not soldiers, they are just murderers, beasts who came to kill and other things for money for Putin. There is no such term. I think that a good person is generally someone who thinks critically, who separates good and evil, who clearly understands cause and effect, and acts in such a way that one is not ashamed. I said right away, why do we need this Crimea if we have our own peninsula, Kamchatka, that needs to be taken care of? In fact, this territory has never belonged to Russia. If they wanted to save the people, they would have just taken them... to the territory of Russia, giving them apartments. I decided to come here and help just to look at myself in the mirror and say that I did something. I didn't support this criminal war, but I also helped. I came to stop this chaos that the Kremlin has created around the world. I wasn't ready, but otherwise it could have been worse. I could have been imprisoned, let's say, and I wouldn't have been able to do the work I'm doing now. We are still enemies for Ukraine because we are from the aggressor country, and to prove it, we probably need to prove that we are on your side with blood. And so with that, that's the end of the clip right there. And of course, interesting to see that these folks are, of course, fighting on the side of the Ukrainians, and great to know that even more Russians are starting to pick their side in the war effort. Moving on from that and into the next clip, we can also see a Ukrainian pulling up in the whip. Matthew, you must see this one right now. Like, look up and watch this clip, because I know you're probably busy as hell, but this one you have to see, Matthew, because this is you on a Wednesday.
Let's see the whip. Man, turn that off, turn that off.
But look at that.
Man, they got the old 2001 X3 or X5 or whatever that is, hauling an artillery piece.
Hauling a 100mm Rapira. Dude, now that is style. Respect, big respect. And so with that, that's the end of the clip right there. Of course, great to see. And moving on from that into the next one, we also got to see a T-80 autoloader in operation. We can see it selecting the shell, an APFSDS shell, loading it into the breech, and now it's ready to go. But that's how the T-80 autoloader works from a top-down view. Moving on from that and into our next clip, where we got to see the Russian casualty report, we also saw some pretty interesting stuff here.
Hey,
what the hell?
Hey, man, it's 0. I thought it said 10. I was about to freak out. Damn.
Nope, no Bobcats lost. But 740 Russian soldiers got glassed, 23 armored personnel carriers were knocked out, 11 supply trucks were destroyed, 22 tanks were also destroyed as well, 18 artillery pieces, 9 drones, 3 cruise missiles, and 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems. All in all, a pretty good day for the Ukrainian armed forces. Moving on from that and down into the area of Bakhmut, and also, really quickly, and many of y'all have gotten familiar to this statement, but I have to say this before we even move into the front lines, because a lot of y'all are going to be saying, why aren't we showing what's happening on the front lines? Because nothing happened. We aren't going to be showing any frontline updates because no part of the front line, from what we could tell, moved today before the stream. So there is no frontline changes. The front lines are static as far as today goes. Also, someone said, well, and I saw someone say in the live chat, they said, what would you think? What would so-and-so think if they heard you say the front lines are static? Well, they are. I mean, it's a fact. I mean, when you see for like 3 straight days, the front lines haven't moved an inch anywhere in the entirety of the war, that is what it is. I mean, you know, they can disagree with that if they want to, but I'm looking at facts here. Y'all are coming here for unbiased frontline situation review, and that is what it is. You know, we try and be positive on this channel. We are still positive. Ukraine will win this war, but at the same time, it's completely stagnant right now. If you find that concerning, I don't know, maybe push your congressmen and parliament and members of parliament to send aircraft quicker to Ukraine, because I think that air superiority is certainly going to be a way that Ukraine will speed up winning the war. But right now, this front line has gone completely stagnant, most likely because of the Rasputitsa, maybe because exhaustion and fatigue may be overtaking both sides at this point, but it's very clear that the front lines are getting stagnant at this point. And, you know, if people want to disagree with that out there, they can. I can't really stop them from that, but it's a fact at this point. When front lines don't move, that's called stagnation. But moving on from that, and into the clip around Bakhmut, we did get to see a BMP get blown up. And we're going to be muting that, although we already played one copyrighted clip, so I'm sure we'll already get boot for that. But when you see the BMP blowing up, boom. Boom, jaga jaga blade. It's stuck a blade. It's nachri. But with that, that's the end of that clip right there. Beautiful to see. And moving on from that and on into our next one near Klishkivka, we also got to see a Russian attack repelled in this area. We're going to be muting that. And also, I gotta thank so many of y'all for being first-time supporters tonight. We've seen so many of y'all popping in and throwing in massive amount of supports for the first time ever, and I gotta thank y'all for that. It means a massive deal to us that people actually respect that we try and cover the news as honestly as we can, of course, being pro-Ukrainian, pro-Israel, but also not shying away from facts and obvious truths that we're seeing. And I gotta thank everyone for appreciating that and supporting us. That way we can keep covering the news the way we always have been able to. But we can see
facts.
And Matthew's just like my hype guy in the background. I'm like, I gotta thank y'all. And he's like, facts, man. I'm like, respect it, man. But anyways,
say it.
You know what, Matthew? While this clip plays, let me see if I can somehow. I'm gonna email you the clips and then just post them into our Discord, so that way they can be shown. So
all right.
Let me go and grab them off my phone. So let's see here. We want to compose. Let's see here.
I'll say it out loud.
Yeah, I'm not saying it out loud. I'm trying to make sure I'm getting the right one, though. At the same time, I'm like, videos. And then let's attach the emails. Well, more so, let's attach the videos. And let's go to all.
And right here in the video, we can see something exploding and fire shooting out of it. Wow, look at that. Little piece of flame going over there on the right.
That thing is boiling. Man, that thing
crispy.
Is toasting.
It's getting crispy. I can smell the smoke from here. It's making me choke.
But let's see here. Let me add the next one. This is actually
now. That looks like the tracks are off that tank over there on the right too. That could be a problem.
That could be. Oh, dude, both of them. That's a little bit of an issue. And so let me add the last one. Almost done here. Almost while the clip is nearly ended. But tanks, of course, destroyed. Tanks burning all over the place. It's nice to see. And I think
it's like a disaster. I'm telling you.
Oh man, I'm telling you. Well, let's see here. I think this is the right one.
And right here we can see a octocopter flying over some kind of tank here. Oh, and it's letting them have it.
Baba Yaga! It's Baba Yaga!
No respect.
Okay, so
Baba the Yaga is smacking this tank hard.
Did you just say Baba the Yaga?
Yeah, man.
Dude, I honestly.
Oh!
So there we go. I've sent 2 of them. I'm got to send you an additional email for the 3rd one. And so let me throw that one in. But that's the end of the clip right there. Great to see the 5th Brigade absolutely blasting some Russians near Klishchiivka. And moving on from that clip and into Avdiivka, we also saw a shell land incredibly close to a Ukrainian soldier. And here we go, Matthew. I'll be sending that last email to you. And here's this clip. And just throw them into... Oh, wait a minute, it's got to load, but here it is. We see the Ukrainian soldier walk into the camera, a mortar round explode right across the street, but everyone is A-okay. And so with that, that's the end of the clip right there. But I gotta say, some very close calls for these Ukrainian soldiers in this clip, and lucky to see that they were missed just very closely, though. Moving on from that into the area of Ozra-Avdiivka, we also saw the SBU showing a compilation of them hitting Russian forces in the region as well. And we're, of course, going to have to be muting it, but we can see the drone flying on down into what appears to be a BMP-3, roasting a BMP-2, ooh, right near the engine bay. We can also see a command MTLB scooting around like some giant, big Chungus version of the MTLB, and it just got hit. Heckin' Chungers, wholesome moment. We can also see a Russian tank getting hit right above the gun mantle by another drone. It appears the hit was very serious. We can also see another clip of the BMP also getting schmacked. We can see the Russians pouring out of the thing.
Big Chungus, wholesome moment.
Man,
when you said that, everything just went into a disaster over on my end. I clicked exit Safari because I thought I was clicking exit QuickTime Player, and I literally exited out of everything I needed to run the entire job on my end. So, real wholesome.
Real heckin' chonkers wholesome moment,
Chongus.
man. I love to hear it.
Heckin' chonker.
Man, heckin' chonker. Dude, I'm going to give you karma for that, man. Thank you for the awards, kind stranger. But anyways, we can see them hitting Russian equipment all over the place. And also, Sean Davis said, don't get bored of Ukraine. We're not getting bored of Ukraine. It's just that as far as Like, I don't know, maybe people are misunderstanding that. It's just as far as precedent, as far as what is the most concerning bits of news coming out of the world today, out of Israel and Ukraine. Israel is taking precedent right now because, well, unlike Ukraine, we don't see multiple carrier strike groups arriving in the Black Sea to face down the Russians. We're seeing that right now in the Middle East. So it's a much more concerning situation on a worldwide scale than Ukraine is at the moment, because not really much is happening right now at the moment on the front lines in Ukraine over the past few days. That's what we're trying to say. We're not saying that we're getting bored or we don't care about the war anymore, because of course we do, otherwise we wouldn't be covering it like we are right now. But moving on from that, and out of the Bakhmut front lines and down into the area of Avdiivka, we did see the Russians getting hit here as well.
Also, those videos are on your Discord, by the way.
Oh, sweet. Maybe we'll show those after the speech from Zelenskyy. Oh, I mean, we got some interesting. Oh, look, cruising down the street in my 6'4". Man, bro, your whip is fire. Oh man, it really is fire. And we now see the Russians running for the hills as multiple APCs are getting hit. And actually, this looks a lot like a new POV from an event we saw a while ago, because it's the same convoy kind of turning around the same way in the frost-covered field, and Russians running from their APCs because they've gotten stuck in the field.
One thing the Russians will, they may starve, they may not have food, they may not have discipline, but they will never be cold.
And I would agree with that as well. And so with that, now,
they sound very hesitant to agree with that.
Yeah,
it was sketchy.
Man, I had a lot of things going on in my mind right now. I'm trying to multitask. But moving on from that into the area of Vidanye, we also saw an APC get hit with some Russian infantry on top. It's like a cherry on top, but in a war. Then we can see the APC here moving through the fields at pretty high speed. The drone coming down right behind it, and of course slamming right into the rear of it. Oh, these guys. They were blown away. But anyways, moving on from that clip and out of the area of Avdiivka, because that's all the footage we got from there today, and the front lines didn't move there either. We're now moving on down to the area of Volodymyrivka, where we got to see some Russian tanks cooking off.
And also, we don't have a Discord account, by the way. We just have personal accounts that we use to run the stream with.
Yes. Well, you see the tank firing, and it's already become a target for the Ukrainians, who are about to take it out here in a minute. And there it goes. Boom! Chugga Igor. Oh! It's a Roman candle. You can find these at your local fireworks store. It's just that they're a lot cheaper than $3.5 million. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. And moving on from that and on into the next one near Pavlivka, we also got to see a picture of some Ukrainian snipers in some really cool kit. Gillied up, having a fun time out on the town, wishing them the best of luck. Pretty cool to see. And so with that, we're moving on from that little picture and on into the area of the Zaporizhia front, where we got 4 separate clips, and also one down near Novokakhovka. But moving on to our first one, we got to see a Russian vehicle get absolutely splatted. Here we can see an already mangled Ural 4320 about to become the recipient of another bomblet. Kind of for giggles. A teeny.
Skits and giggles.
Oh, that's an M67 frag grenade, and it just fell right into the truck bed, blew up, and caused a little bit more damage.
I actually took that kind of well.
Oh,
look at that.
It took it well. It cuts to a fire in the truck bed.
I knew it was about to do that. I'm not spoke too soon.
Have you ever wanted to get yourself a high-quality Ural 4320 on the front lines? Well, then you're out of luck. There's no such thing as a high-performance Russian battlefield truck. These things get blown away quicker than your mother got blown away with the kind of person that you chose to marry. She was very disappointed in you. It's also I don't even know why I had to throw smoke like that. I started that line and just chose smoke. Though we can see them also trying to hit this, almost what appears to be a mine clearing charge here. And it does appear that there's some kind of a fire that started on it. For some reason, I feel like this thing is about to explode, but we'll wait and see. Oh, a little fire starting there. It's almost like a large match. And when I say match, I mean like a 17th century match, which is kind of like just a burning rope, but it's burning. Kind of slow. Oh, it's starting to pick up. But it's not really exploding or anything. It's just kind of on fire. We can see the fire stuff starting to spread. Smokey the Bear is having a stroke right now watching this. What the hell? What the hell do you mean? Oh my god. Okay, now it really is a serious... Well, I think the explosion actually just put out the fire. Maybe. And it kind of looks like it did. It almost took out the fire. Oh, wait a minute, no. The truck got flipped over. Now it's just completely on fire. So, you know, it kind of worked, kind of didn't. But it's great to see they were able to blow the whole thing up. Moving on from that and into the next clip, we also got to see that the Ukrainians hit a supply of dragon's teeth today as well. Or what has been called Toblerone, because these things kind of look like the little Toblerone blocks in the Toblerone bars. Oh, you see them dropping a bomblet onto the special equipment vehicle and smacking it clean through the roof of the truck. It's left a perfectly symmetrical hole on the top of it. We see the Russians running away. That's the end of the clip. But moving on from that and on into our next clip, we also got to see a little bit of a bomber. You know, it was a little bit of a bomber. I'm just gonna show it to y'all. This man here has a bottle of champagne or kvass. We don't really know, but he tries to give it to this Russian, and of course, being the klutz he is, he just drops it onto the ground and it blows up in his face. So now his face is filled with some kind of a booze, and the Russian commander's like, "You idiot." So there's no more booze. Moving on from that, and into our next clip, we also got to see near the area of Arikiv, a Panzerhaubitze 2000 in operation. Of course, can't play the audio, but we can see them all sitting inside the turret and running their SPG here, a very nice one at that, very modern, very advanced, and very accurate. We now see some external footage of it in operation.
Put in reverse, Terry.
Put it in reverse, Terry! And that's the end of the clip, but nice to see the Panzerhaubitze in operation. Moving on from that, and down into the area of Novikakhovka, we also got to see a Swedish RBS ATGM fired at the Russians. If it loads. Be patient, everyone.
Put it in forward, Terry.
Put it in next gear, Terry! But here's the missile. We can see it over there. We hear rap music playing, or whatever that is, and we're about to see the missile fired. And there it goes, off into the wild blue yonder, and right across.
Mr. Bombastic, Mr. Fantastic.
Man, bombastic side-eye. But anyways, that's the end of the clip right there. Nice to see them firing off the Swedish ATGM. And wonderful to know the Swedes are providing that ATGM to them. And with that, it is now time for us to move up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 612 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is...
Give me some speech.
Here is the speech, man. Let's see, here we go.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Сьогодні перший день роботи саміту на Мальті. Зустріч радників та дипломатичних представників щодо нашої формули миру, яка поступово, крок за кроком, стає глобальною. 66 держав представлені на саміті – це вагомо. Всі континенти представлені. Багато держав, різні політичні традиції. Я дякую усім лідерам та країнам, які вже підтримали спільне бачення щодо миру. Є потенціал, щоб розширити представництво держав. Пункти нашої формули створені саме так, щоб кожен у світі, хто дійсно цінує міжнародне право, міг проявити себе і свої цінності та підтримати глобальні зусилля проти агресії. Зараз на саміті на Мальті триває робота щодо 5 з 10 пунктів формули. Це ядерна та радіаційна безпека, продовольча безпека, енергетична безпека, звільнення всіх полонених і депортованих людей і відновлення територіальної цілісності України та світового порядку. Щодо кожного пункту формули сформовані групи держав, які зосередились на реалізації. Українську роботу щодо формули веде Андрій Єрмак, залучення команди Офісу, Міністерства закордонних справ, урядовців, представники Верховної Ради України. Я вдячний усім, хто додає Україні такої дипломатичної сили. Торік, коли я тільки представив формулу, світ ще обговорював різні бачення, доволі різні підходи щодо відновлення нашого державного кордону та чесного миру. І світова більшість поступово об'єднується навколо спільного та справедливого бачення, яке відображено формулою миру. Єдність світу – це те, що дійсно потрібно, аби агресори програвали. І це дуже символічно, що такий сильний прояв міжнародної єдності ми маємо саме сьогодні, 28 жовтня, у день, коли згадуємо в Україні Другу світову війну та річницю вигнання нацистів з нашої території. Тоді український народ разом з багатьма народами боровся, щоб розбити зло. Саме єдність дала народам необхідну силу. І не тільки, щоб перемогти нацизм та покарати нацистів за скоєні ними злочини проти людства, за Голокост, за знищення народів, але й щоб заснувати таку архітектуру безпеки і миру, яка б захистила від нової глобальної війни. Зараз бачимо, що створена тоді архітектура не спрацювала. Але єдність точно спрацює ефективно. Єдність усіх, хто допомагає Україні перемогти рашизм. І ми його переможемо обов'язково. І єдність усіх у світі, хто працює разом з нами, разом з усіма нашими партнерами, щоб поновити силу міжнародного права та реальну вагу принципів та норм статуту ООН. Світ не місце для агресії. Людство прийде до цього. Тільки так можна захистити життя. Ще одне. Я хочу сьогодні особливо відзначити українських прикордонників. Буде такий час, ми робимо все, щоб його наблизити, коли прикордонники України працюватимуть спокійно на всіх ділянках нашого суверенного державного кордону. А зараз багато хто з них разом з усіма силами оборони та безпеки б'ється на передовій, аби наблизити час миру для України. Я дякую всьому складу Державної прикордонної служби України, окремої нашої з вами вдячності заслуговують воїни Краматорського прикордонного загону, зокрема старший сержант Роман Малиш та майор Вадим Костенко. Вони воюють на Бахмутському напрямку. Дякую за вашу міцність. Також на Донеччині виконують завдання і воїни Харківського прикордонного загону, старший солдат Олександр Коваленко та старший лейтенант Сергій Сидорський. Дякуємо, воїни. Лиманський напрямок, підрозділ Могилів-Подільського прикордонного загону, старший сержант Олександр Левус. Дякую за відвагу. Куп'янський напрямок, бригада Сталевий кордон, сержанти Анатолій Павловський, Валерій Покритюк, Микола Білик та старший сержант Максим Базаров. Дякую вам, воїни, за знищення російської техніки та артилерії. Слава усім, хто б'ється та працює заради нашої держави та звільнення всієї України від окупантів. Дякую усім в світі, хто допомагає. Слава Україні!
And Heroes Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, and that is going to be moving us into the, second part of the stream, where we're going to be covering everything else, the polls, the questions. We're going to have to cut down the polls significantly, though, because those are starting to take up an incredibly long amount of time because they're becoming like almost discussion hours for us. But before we move into all that, some of you all heard that I had shot machine guns today, and some of y'all were interested in seeing that because it was actually filmed by folks I knew at the place that the machine guns were. It was really fun, I gotta admit. Got to shoot some pumpkins in the Halloween spirit, and it was just great fun. So we actually have these here on Discord. Let's see here. Is that the truck?
Oh, you can show that truck after you show the video.
Oh, okay. All right, fair enough. And also, Matthew, I think there was, we'll just show these two. So this is a model 1928 Tommy gun, and for some reason, although we have the auto ordnance version, I forgot which way the safety was, so I actually flipped it from fire to safe, and then wondered why it didn't fire, just letting y'all know. But here's the clip. And so that was my review on it. It was kind of nice. So I kind of liked that one, but this one was a lot more impressive, at least in my opinion. This is an MG42, but chambered in 308, so it's like a MG3, MG42, like Frankenstein, but still pretty neat. And so here's the clip.
Safety's on.
Oh yeah. And then it jammed, and so then the fellow had to unjam it because I didn't know how to unjam an MG42. Do any of y'all know how to do it? So then it got unjammed, finally. And then I unloaded the rest of like the 20 or 30 rounds or so on this next one. And so that's the end of those two clips, but just showing off a little bit of what I did today. And then on top of that, we also have this GMC truck. I don't know why this is here, but
I can't see anything. Where is it?
Sadly, I wouldn't be able to switch it over because there would be like a lot of stuff to do. But it is in your Discord because you did put it up in here. And
oh yes, I was showing this truck right here. What are you about to explain? You don't know the context of it or anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I was about to hand it over to you, but you go ahead.
I sent pictures of this truck right here because it's a new truck that's coming out, and I just saw it today, and it looks super cool. It reminds me of like a Mercedes Unimog, but it's like the GMC version. So I was thinking we could get one as the LSA. We could straight pipe it so it sounds like a redneck truck. We could squat it in the back where it's like that Carolina squat. And we could drive it through everyone's neighborhood real loud and annoy everybody like, like the rednecks like to do.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Pretty interesting. We'll have to see about that. That's probably a pretty weird idea. But anyways, with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right. So we only have one poll to address. And that poll says, should the U.S. prevent Elon Musk from making unilateral decisions that affect U.S. foreign policy? 64% said yes, legislate the matter. 8% said unsure. 8% said, I'm kind of neutral on this. And 20% said, no, that's not American. And I would say legislate the matter because if the decisions he's making with his private company, which it is under his control, are affecting U.S. foreign policy and can potentially cause the situation to get even more out of hand and drag us into a world war, even though it'd be indirectly, I think that should be something the U.S. government has a say in. But that's just me. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I think that's something that should be legislated. America, of course, the Americans have a very large amount of rights, but one thing Americans don't have rights to do is possibly start sabotaging American strategic interest overseas just because they can. That's something you don't have a right to. And that's something I believe needs to be legislated, especially as far as Elon Musk is concerned, because that was largely something we signed off on with Ukraine, and now he's going into Israel and just adding like, oh, look, I'm just going to give this to the Palestinians and probably have it fall into the hands of Hamas just because I can. And I think if he's going to do something like that against our strategic interest, even if this could be shooting us in the foot space exploration-wise in the long run, I think we should say, well, if you want to do that, either we are going to stop you, and then if you try and skirt around that and keep doing it, we are going to start revoking government contracts from SpaceX as a bit of a way to, of course, make sure that there's a little bit of a push and a pull. But with that, I hope that does address that well, in my opinion, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and we are now moving into our Super Chat questions once again. And up first, we have a massive $100 donation from Bill Evans.
Hey!
And I believe, let me double check, I don't know if this is Bill's first Super Chat or not, but if it is, Bill, thank you very much. But I have a feeling I might have seen you throw one in before. But anyways, thank you very much for the $100 donation. And Bill says Israel needs to just annex Gaza and the West Bank after the dust settles on this. To let the jihadis rule are just insane, and total Israeli control is needed.
And I thank you for the support, the massive amount of support, Bill. And thank you so much for helping the channel to keep on rolling. Now, to address that, I would say that Israel does need to make sure to dismantle the Hamas government inside of the Gaza Strip. But I don't really know if Israel should annex it or not. And I'm kind of a little bit divided on that. Because there's two different ways that this will go after they take over the Gaza Strip, at least temporarily. Either they put it back into Palestinian control, and then a terrorist group takes control of the Strip again, or they let it go, and then things kind of go back to normal. And then those are the two options if they keep it. And then, of course, if they occupy it, there's other options. That means that there could be terrorist uprisings inside of the Gaza Strip. Still, it's just that now they're inside of Israeli-controlled territory, or they could end up trying to bring stability to that area of Israel and then move all of the Gazans into the West Bank, which I have no idea how that would actually go. That seems like it would be actually very logistically challenging. While it's not hard to move refugees around in the millions, in all honesty, it's very hard to put them somewhere permanently, like millions of people just move them somewhere permanently. That is quite difficult to do. And so it's kind of hard for me to say. I don't think they should annex it, though. Like, my actual inclination would be is that they shouldn't annex it. I think it should be put under some kind of a special administrative control, where it's still Palestinian, but the Israelis have oversight and control the security of the Gaza Strip inside of the Gaza Strip. I think that would probably be a good move to do, because that would ensure Israeli security interests are appeased, but at the same time, that wouldn't be dislocating 4 million Palestinians somewhere else, and who knows where they would go. So with that, I thank you for the support, Bill. I hope that addresses that fairly well, at least in my opinion. Of course, it is just an opinion. You know, it's just worthless at the end of the day, and it's just my take on it. But I feel like it would be very difficult to have that happen. And also, this is, for about the past 60, 70 years or so, this has been the Gazans' home. And it would be very weird to since the Israelis have largely agreed that this is going to be the place they live, to just kick them out and move them somewhere else. I think, however, that I can agree that Gaza cannot independently govern itself from here forward. It needs to be some kind of a Israeli protectorate or something similar, so that way Israel can control the security, the policing, and the governance of Gaza, but at the same time, the people can still live there and have like civil governments, but beyond that, nothing more. And also that would still be with the oversight of an Israeli Security Council to make sure that nothing out of line happens where, of course, a group like Hamas is brought back into power again. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support, Bill. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Khan, who puts in a $100 donation. And I do know that was Khan's first super chat, and he threw in 2 tonight. And huge shout out to you, Khan, for putting in that 100, as well as that 50 that also came in as well without a comment. So 150 in total. That is massive support, and thank you very much for that. And he says, Israel has 35 tank battalions ready to crush Gaza. Israel has an air force, Iron Dome, and nuclear weapons. And Putin's Wagner-trained Hamas fighters attacked Israel. And Putin's Israel proxy war must not take the attention away from 35 million Ukrainians fighting a genocide.
And I thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Khan. And I'd have to largely agree with everything, even the last statement, because I don't think it should take attention away from Ukraine. And that's why we still continue to cover Ukraine now. And that's why we also haven't cut them out of a news segment. I've also promised to everyone that we would make sure to cover the news of the war in Ukraine every single day until it ended. And while Israel is taking precedence and being covered first, we are still making sure to keep true to that statement and to make sure to continue to cover the news of the war in Ukraine. I don't think it should take attention away, and that's certainly not what we're trying to do on this channel. And I think that support should continue to be provided to Ukraine. People should continue to lobby and support American interests and American involvement in Ukraine, because it's certainly within American interests and Western interests to do something like that and to try and contain the Russians where they are. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for the enormous amount of support, Con, and helping this channel to keep on running. Folks like you make this thing possible. And if it wasn't for folks like you, and this is actually your first time supporting tonight, the $50 super chat you threw in with no comment was the first time you supported, and this is the second time, all in one night. And I gotta thank you so much for stepping forward and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help us to be able to keep the attention on Ukraine and in Israel and everywhere where this axis of evil is cropping up and trying to usurp the free Western world. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Marius Holton, who puts in a very generous $90 donation.
Hey!
And that was actually, I believe, 1,000 NOK, which is a Norwegian kroner. Yes, I got it right. And Marius, thank you very much for that support. And he did not leave a comment. That is his first ever super chat of the channel, though. We've had a ton of first-time supporters tonight. And thank you all for deciding to donate to the channel, because we do thrive on viewer donations. It's what keeps us running, and it means a lot to us. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta completely agree with Matthew. It's really the only thing that keeps us running. And this channel is incredibly special, Marius, in that way. And I gotta thank you for being a first-time supporter tonight and helping us to keep it running, because without folks like y'all, this channel wouldn't have been able to exist. It wouldn't be able to continue to exist without y'all's continued support in the super chats. Unlike every other channel out there who runs ads, has sponsors, makes sure to monetize the hell out of everything to the point that you look in their video descriptions, they have like 20 different links, and all of those links are different ways to pay them money. We have done none of that. There really is no way that this channel is monetized except through the super chats. And I got to thank every single one of y'all, including you, Marius, for the massive amounts of support that y'all have given tonight and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to run this channel as uniquely as we have. Many other YouTubers, and they won't tell you this, but I'll tell you this, many other YouTubers have gags put on them where they have to say certain things certain ways to appease sponsors. Sometimes sponsors have specific things that they look at and they approve of or disapprove of, and that could dictate whether you get another sponsorship from them or not. That's largely the same thing with YouTube AdSense as well. If YouTube doesn't like what you're saying, they will limit your AdSense, meaning that you make almost no money at all. And so a lot of these folks out there who run like that, they're not telling you what they really think. They're sitting there and telling you what they think the YouTube algorithm would like to hear and what their sponsors would like to hear, so that way they can continue to cash in. And that's something that we've never been an idea of. I've never been the idea of censoring our own speech and our own inputs and our own way of reporting the news, just so that way we can get in on cash flow that we're not able to access right now. We would much rather just take viewer support and continue to run the channel that way, because if we didn't run it that way, this channel wouldn't exist the way it is. We would be like every other channel out there who just says exactly what the forces that be beyond, YouTube, that of course make sure that they are able to do it as a job, want them to say, and we wouldn't be able to do what we want on air. And so thank you so much once again for that massive support, Marius, because if it wasn't for folks like you from Norway that were throwing in that support, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible like it is. And thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our next super chat question, we have one from Harvey the Drummer, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Harvey, for the continued support tonight and helping to keep us running. And he says, what kind of law do each of you want to practice when you pass the bar? And I like that subtle vote of confidence, by the way. He said, when you pass the bar, assuming we'll pass it, he says, Enforcer Matt, what kind of drums and music did you play? And I used to play the drums and all percussion instruments in high school. I played the bass drum, snare drum, timpani, xylophone, all the little, goofy triangle and all the auxiliary instruments. I played all of those. And I played the drum set a little bit. And I actually have my drum set sitting right in front of me in my room to the right over here. I used to be able to play it pretty dang good, but can't play it worth a crap now. That was a total skill that I completely lost over a few years. But it looks good in the corner of the room, though, I will say. But I can't play it. So you're probably much better off than I am. But hopefully I can pass the bar a bit if I can play the drums. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support, the massive amount of support, Harvey, and helping the channel to keep on running. And the kind of law that we would want to practice once we pass the bar is really a little bit of everything. Specifically, and I'm not really going to beat around the bush, because after we got into law school, we were like, oh, we don't want to ruffle any feathers. And then I got in there, I was like, not really a fan. I'm not really a fan of law school, to be honest. So I don't really care about ruffling feathers. We are honestly both looking to go into attorney malpractice because there's not really a lot of people who hold the legal profession accountable for the bad doings of people in the group. And I think that's something that certainly is a shortcoming here in Alabama. There's very few people who do it. Those people are also largely ostracized by the legal profession, and I think it should be that way because people who screw up need to be held accountable. That's something that we've always believed in since day one, really since we've been born. Our parents raised us that way. And even if that means that you get ostracized by the group, that doesn't mean that it's the wrong thing to do. You know, like Winston Churchill said, if people hate you good, you must have done something in your life. And I believe in that completely. And so that's kind of the law that I generally want to go into is malpractice law and try and hold attorneys that screw over cases accountable for their actions. And so with that,
Same.
and so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Harvey, and helping this channel to keep on rolling. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this possible. And also, by the way, really quickly, let me say this as well. While I want to hold people accountable in the legal field, I just have to say that as a by and large observation, not a lot of people get held accountable anywhere. A lot of people like to be in the in group and like to just let things slide. And that's something that we've, of course, observed even doing things here on YouTube, is that sometimes people do things that are just downright egregious. And in other instances, it's always clearly seen that it is a pure wrong, what has been done. And yet at the same time, people like to be in an in-group and a little clique because they think they know each other, and then they all come to the defense of one, although they've done something egregious. That happens in every single field ever. And that's been our observation, especially doing this. And it's something that it's very disheartening to see that so many people just love to hop in corrupt groups and support each other and back each other up, although what they're doing is obviously wrong and out of line just because they think they're friends with them. And that's something that I'm probably always going to be against, and it's not going to make us any friends, obviously, because you make friends by joining corrupt groups and just trying to have friends and do things like that, but I'm not into that one bit. That is just a way to be a slimy crook like really everyone is. And I'm not a big fan of that at all. I'd rather have no friends and do what's right than to have friends and do everything wrong. And so with that, hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for support, Harvey. I didn't know I was going to make a small inspirational speech on that super chat, but still, thank you so much once again for helping us to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, huge shout out to David Smith, who put in a $20 donation. And David said he didn't want us to announce what he said, but to take a look. And I have made a note of that, David, and have put it in the side spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet to go with the first one, and it is in that one now. So thank you very much, David, for that support and helping to keep the channel running. And we have a $15 super chat from Ari Soini. And thank you very much, Ari, for your support as well. I said, keep on keeping on, Kiwi Wife and Finn, and maybe a live chat question.
And thank you so much, Ari Sweeney, for the support and helping this channel to keep on keeping on. And also, we will make sure to get a live chat, and it's great to know that we have a Kiwi Wife and a Finn in here in the form of Ari Sweeney. And both of y'all apparently live in Australia now because that's Australian dollars. So y'all are like the not Mr. Worldwide, Family Worldwide. That's what y'all are like. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because folks like you help to make this thing possible. And so with that, what is the live chat, Matthew?
Live chat goes to Sandy, who says, what does NATO do about Turkey?
NATO, it hasn't done anything about Turkey at the moment. But I feel like they should start moving in that direction. I think we should start saying, listen, here's the deal. If you're going to support a terrorist organization that is clearly anti-Western or anti-NATO, you can't be in this group. And you're going to lose all the security protections that NATO provides because we're about to kick you out. We're about to find a way to kick you out. And then if Erdogan goes, very well, we just kick him out. And there he goes. He's on his own. And then if that's not good for him, he'll go, wait, don't do that. And then he'll join back. And I have a feeling he probably will join back the right side once that little ultimatum's given. Because all of Turkey's weapons are largely provided by the Western world. In case y'all didn't know that. And, of course, to get more parts, equipment, and munitions, they have to be friends with the Western world. Otherwise, their entire military is going to grind to a halt over the next 10 years, and they're going to have to start buying weapons from elsewhere. Their economy will also probably be in bad shape as well, so I think that will probably be the best way to approach this problem and have it solved, is to start giving a little bit of an ultimatum to Turkey based off of what they've now said. But with that, I hope that
And ironically enough, in the USA, Thanksgiving is coming up, and what do Americans have for supper on Thanksgiving? Turkey.
Oh, and we're gonna be having turkey on Thanksgiving. But anyways, with that, thank you once again for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ed, who puts in a $10 super chat. And thank you very much, Ed, for that support. And he says, LSA's Irish Ed from Pennsylvania here. Hey! And when I was a kid, the Iran Shah was a wrestler in WWF that Hulk Hogan beat down. And oh yeah, with the crazies protesting, someone put something in the water supply or something.
Wait a minute, what? Someone put something in the water supply?
He's wanting to know why the crazies are out there trying to support, Hamas and Palestine fighting against innocent civilians. Did somebody put something in the water?
Oh, no. I would just say it's rife stupidity, which is nothing really new. It's so sad. And, back in the day, I used to be able to eloquently put things out and explain my points of view. And over 2 years of doing this, I've just realized no one really wants to listen to a point of view or an argument or anything. So it gets really hard to even put out words that you really think are going to mean anything, because no one really even listens to points of view anymore. But it's absolute stupidity. That's the best way you can put it down. I'm trying to explain it eloquently and make it also short and sweet so that way we don't rabbit hole on this. People do things that are against their own best interests quite often these days because they've been told that it actually is in their interest to support that thing. And it makes no sense at all, because Hamas and Hezbollah are groups that swear that they will destroy the United States if given the chance. And they don't care if you supported them or not. You're an American, you will die. That's the mindset of they can ever find an American, that's what they're going to do. And that's the mindset they have against the entirety of the United States. And yet somehow people in America believe that it's good to support these people. I don't know if it's because they watch stupid movies where someone betrays their nation or their group or something like that and ends up betraying them, and they're heroes of the movie. I don't know if it's something like that motivates people into these kinds of decision-making processes or what. I have no idea. It just blows me away, though, that people would openly support folks that would kill them given the chance. It's like it would be like Jewish people before World War II supporting Nazi Germany. It's like, they are going to come and kill you when given the chance. Why would you support them? They're obviously a threat to your own existence. Don't support these people. They're bad people. And yet people still do that to this day. And everyone says that history is going to repeat itself, or history repeats itself. Or in the words of Otto von Bismarck, and I think this is much better, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes, which is a very good saying because it really does. Nobody ever learns from history. And everyone in this generation tries to act like they are so much smarter than the last generation. They figured the whole thing out. And every generation thinks that about the last generation. The last one was stupid, and we figured everything out. And yet everyone does the same errors and the same faults as the last generation again. And we're seeing it again right here. And this is going to be one of those things that everyone looks back on and goes 70 years down the road, why the hell would anyone support Hamas? It was a terrible organization. And that's clear right now, and it's something that I'm pretty firm in my belief in, for sure. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Yeah, you would think maybe 10 years down the road, people would look back and think, that was a dumb decision to support Hamas for the people that are. But sadly, I think it'll be the opposite. I think more people will be like, we should have supported that a long time ago because, that was the hip thing to do. And now it's becoming even more hip because logic keeps going out of the window even more and more every day. Yeah, but anyways.
Oh, yeah. Let's keep it moving. Yeah, let's keep it moving. It's probably better.
Keep it moving, pal. The next one goes to KG, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, KG, for that support. That is very generous of you, and we appreciate it very much. And he says, I would suggest those that are anti-American and have all the rights and promises that America can have, and they abuse to the degree that upsets everyone, well, honestly, they can go away.
And I thank you for the support, KG. And while I find it very stupid that people even support Hamas or Russia or whatever, in America they do have the right to say those things. And it's something that I'm a pretty adamant believer in. Yes, at this point, it does really aggravate me and it just annoys the hell out of me. But it is a right that Americans are owed. Like the same right that we have to support Israel and Ukraine, people also have an equal right to support Hamas and Russia. And that's something that I'm a firm believer in. But at the same time, people who complain about this country incessantly and talk about how oppressive it is and how terrible it is, they are so delusional from reality, because the fact that they're even able to say those statements shows that it's a non-oppressive country. Because, for example, if you say in Russia nothing and you just hold up a white board above your head, the police will come and arrest you for that because they think it's speech against the government and there isn't even anything on the sign. That's real oppression, because you can't even criticize the Russian government or Russia as a whole, or same in China. And yet people in America always want to complain about how we do things and how terrible we are, and yet they have the ability to even say those things because we aren't as bad and terrible as they say. But nevertheless,
Yeah, if there's greener grass elsewhere, then how come these people don't move to these countries where they say it's so much better? But they live in America, they enjoy the rights of Americans, but yet they'll say it's the most evil country on the planet and it needs to be torn down.
yeah, and that's something that I hear so much nowadays. Everyone always wants to go, oh, it's so much better in such and such place. It doesn't even matter where it is. It's just better in another place. It's like, well, if it's so great there, why not go there? It's like, if you think, like, just as an example, Australia is better than America, why not go there? They're not stopping you from immigrating to Australia. America isn't either. Just go there and see if you like it. Maybe you will. I mean, hell, who the hell knows? Maybe it actually is something you like. Maybe you won't like it and you'll come back. Who knows? But it's, that's always annoying to me to hear people complain about the country. It's like, if you don't like it and you think another country is better, instead of just complaining about it, why not try and make our country modeled in the way that you like things abroad, instead of just endlessly complaining about it? But that's the way I look at things. I don't know. I'm kind of more of a person that doesn't like complaining. I like fixing the problems that I think I see. But apparently that's a minority opinion these days. Most people just like to complain and act like there's a problem, but never provide a solution or fix it.
It's that, oh man, mindset. That mindset is like pervading the country at the moment. And there's no positivity. Like, there's going to be problems, folks. We know there's going to be problems. No country's perfect. Israel's not perfect. Ukraine's not perfect by any means. And America's not perfect. But if you approach a problem with a defeatist mindset to begin with, you're surely not going to fix it. And not only that, but you're also going to help tear it down, because that negative mindset is going to spill over into every other aspect of the country. And it's going to spread to all the different people. And there's already enough negative things in life, and to approach a problem that is not that bad, like for example, if the government makes a bad decision here and there, and just say the whole country's crap and evil, that's not solving a thing.
And also, it's just stupid to me to see people go, oh, like let's just insert, oh, politicians suck, or the cops suck, or the DMV sucks. It's like, if you think that, well, I don't know. Why don't you try and become a politician or a cop or something? If you have the answer to the problem, apparently, because you're complaining about it so much, why don't you go and try and fix it? Because I'll be quite honest with you, I absolutely hate politics, but that's why I want to run for politics, because if I hate it that much, obviously I've got to have some kind of ideas in my own head of how it should be, and if I get elected, I'm going to start doing the things that I think politics should be. That's my mindset. If you hate something so much that you think it's terrible, why not become a part of it? For all the people that hate, the DMV, why not go work at the DMV if you think it's that bad? Be the change you want to see. If you hate the cops, go become a cop. Be the cop you would want to see out there in the public. If you hate politicians, go be a politician. If you hate the country, go to another one. Go be the change you want and go change the things you complain about so much. Because it's just so damn annoying to see everyone going around whining all the time about everything and not actually providing their own solutions or their own fix to the problem or stepping up and fixing it themselves. It's like some idiot sitting in the room with all the lights blowing out above their head going, oh man, I hate that the lights are out. It's like, you got a damn box of lights right over there beside you. Go get a ladder and go fix the lights if you don't like them being out. Don't just whine, fix the problem. But anyways, enough about that. Thank you for the support, though, and I hope that addressed it fairly well, KG. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one also goes to KG yet again. He throws in a $20 donation this time. And thank you very much, KG. He says, when I watched buildings tumble, there were groups in NYC who liked it. And there's sick people everywhere. There's sick people, like right now, wishing death and destruction on Israel, even though there's innocent people there. And there's also people wishing death and destruction on everyone in Gaza as well. And there's also innocent people in Gaza also. You know, can't take a one-size-fits-all approach to everything. There's innocents on every side. Can't just wipe everybody out just because you don't like, you know, one group. But that seems to be the way it's going. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much about the support, KG, and helping the channel to keep on running. And also, yes, there were people who did that, and there's people who do that all the time. When American soldiers get killed abroad, there's people who cheer it on. When our president, and although I'll say this, I cannot really stand any politicians at all. I'm not really a big fan of any of them. In fact, I'm not really a fan of any of them. But whenever they go abroad, some people out there who are not on their side, like they're the opposite party, they wish death on these people. They go, man, I wish a fighter jet would shoot down their jet and kill all of them. And I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like you can dislike them, sure, but what are you saying? Like these people can just stomp on our politicians, like the president, and just kill him, and you're going to cheer it on? It's like that guy represents the whole country right now, whether you like him or not. You know, and that's something as well that just really grinds my gears. Is people who just cheer on stupid stuff to their detriment that would have equally happened to them. And yet they just cheer it on because they're too stupid to think otherwise. And also someone else said in the live chat, they said, aren't you just whining about the whiners? No, because I'm giving them a solution. I'm not just whining to them. I'm giving them a solution. Fix your problems. There's the solution. So
My solution is just stop whining.
Yeah, my solution is just stop whining and get to it. And on top of that, it's like people work so little at fixing the problems they see, they've got enough time to whine about it. If you're actually working enough on fixing your own issue, you wouldn't have time to whine about the problem. Like, I don't really have the time to worry about politics at all. I'm trying to do my own thing, and when I get to that point, I'll get to it and hopefully fix the crap I don't like. Or at least I will work my damnedest to try. And so with that, we are
And
on...
where'd they get all this energy to go whining anyway? It's like, don't you work?
Man, and
It's
everyone's
like,
got this energy.
It's like everybody's running around like they got unlimited energy to whine and complain about everything. Like, let's go run over here and protest. Let's go over there and protest. Let's go do this, that. Let's go riot. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, how do you have this energy? It's like, if you're actually like working and being productive, how do you have the time to run around focusing on this stuff? Like, we get on here every night with y'all to raise awareness for Ukraine and now Israel as well. But most of us will have day jobs, or you're either retired and you've worked a job your entire life. But I just don't understand how the people have the time to complain as much as they do these days.
I don't either, and it's everyone. Like, it's not just one, like, it's not one group, because a lot of people are going to go, oh, it's that party or this party. No, it's both of them. Everyone acts like they got so much time to go around and complain that no one is ever spending that same amount of time working towards fixing the problem. I'm telling y'all, it's ludicrous. That's why I can't get into politics. I can't stand it, because everyone just sits around and whines about the crap. It's like, why not provide solutions? Like, people will go, man, there's no jobs. Why not give a solution as to how you would get jobs? Like, yeah, thanks, bozo. We all know there might not be any jobs where you are. Why not give a solution to the problem? You know, instead of just whining about it. But anyways, with that, hope that does address that well. And there's a million different things that people say, and it's like, why not fix it yourself? But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who has changed their name back to the original. They put in a 10 and a 7. The first one said, the name is back, and I'm glad to see it. And at the end of the day, as long as the AMX10 is in Ukraine, it can be useful. And also, give me a live chat question.
And thank you so much once again for the support, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because folks like you help to make it possible, and we will be making sure to get a live chat question. Also, I'm happy that your name changed back, because I really do love AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang. And so with that, what's the live chat?
And this one goes to Sympathizer, who says, is Lebanon in the war?
Not really. Unofficially, they kind of are through Hezbollah, but on an official level, they're not a part of the war. And so with that, I hope that addresses that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from CK Bold. And thank you very much, CK, as always, for the support. And he said take a live chat question. And we shall take a live chat. And this one goes to John B. Rempel, who says, how many rounds in the M109 before the barrel needs switching?
I think it's a few hundred, if I remember correctly. I think it's a little bit over the 300 mark, at least from what I understand. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to, let me get rid of this bot, bye-bye. Next one goes to Dark Warrior 137, who puts in a 5 and says the issue with Turkey becoming pro-Russia is that they could blockade the trade route to the Black Sea, and they are essentially Russia's friend inside of NATO.
And that's true to an extent. That kind of is something that we've seen as well from Turkey, is that they kind of try and play the fence for that. And I also think that's something we need to start looking into seriously with Turkey, is where their allegiances really lie. Is it with the Western world, or is it on their own? And if it's on their own, I think we should help them out with that and make sure that they're on their own. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and putting that in, because that's a very good observation. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And someone said that the Stoner Gang showed up. I don't know who's showing up. Munchie Squad, Stoner Gang, whatever you want to call it. But the bots are coming in strong. But they're getting banned strongly too, so, you know, it is what it is. But moving on to our next one, we have a $50 super chat from Alchemist251. And they are also a first-time supporter tonight. And a huge shout out to you for that very generous support. And that is very cool to see that you are a first-time supporter. I'm not sure how long you've been around the channel. Maybe you'll tell us in the live chat, but we do appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Alchemist. You didn't throw in a comment, but it is the first time you've ever supported this channel. And I gotta thank you so much, once again, for helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and thank you for supporting the channel and enjoying the channel enough to help us keep this thing running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again. And also, Jeanette said we have a low unemployment rate. Yes, that's true. Our unemployment rate is quite low right now. I think it's like 3.9, I think, the last time I saw it, or 4.3 or something like that. So it's well below the 5% threshold that's considered good. But I was just bringing that up as an example earlier. It doesn't actually reflect a real situation. And we always make sure, well, I always make sure that when I make statements like that could be taken in a political vein, they actually don't even reflect the current situation. Otherwise, it could be a political statement. So we always make sure that the statement isn't even true to the facts at the moment. We just try and make an example. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Jack Ray, who puts in a $10 super chat. And thank you very much, Jack, for that support. Just keep it up, and thank you.
And thank you so much, Jack Ray, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will keep it up. And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we're about to be moving on to the next one. But really quickly, shoot this off. Someone said, funny how Ukraine is not as newsworthy as it was a month ago. Well, the thing is that, you see, a month ago, a new war in Israel hadn't been occurring, and much like you're saying, people who are burying their family members in Ukraine apparently isn't important anymore, that you're trying to sarcastically say about that. I'm guessing you're also saying that Israeli lives and Palestinian lives are just completely worthless, and there's no point in even covering them because they're not even people or something, although that just happened a few weeks ago, and we're covering that as much as we can while we're covering Ukraine. If you're not happy here, there's a million other channels out there, and I highly encourage you to find the one that makes you happy if this one isn't the one. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Dark Warrior 137, who we already covered. Thank you once again, Dark Warrior. The next one goes to Hilton. Hilton, maybe like the hotel. They put in a 5, and they said, it turns out there are consequences for doing horrible things and pillaging a country and messing with the innocent people in the country.
And I would agree. I think there's certainly consequences of that, and Hamas is learning them first and foremost. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one is also another first-time channel supporter, Robert Kane, who puts in a $20 donation. And he says, take one from the chat. And we shall do so. And thank you very much for that support. And YouTube threw in the #1 with the balloons, celebrating your first support of the channel. So huge thanks to you, Robert. And the live chat question goes to Sammy, who says, have you heard the reports of a large underground Hamas terrorist facility directly underneath the hospital in North Gaza?
I did hear about that, and we've heard that apparently there are multiple Hamas facilities directly under hospitals and other kinds of facilities that would look very bad for the Israelis to attack. That appears to be a normal strategy of Hamas. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Scott S., who puts in a $5 super chat and does not leave a comment, but huge shout out to you, Scott, for that support. Hey! We also have a 5 from Firestarter, who puts in a 5 and says, even if they went south, where would they stay? Wouldn't there be some kind of housing limit? And should they stay outside?
Well, first off, weather conditions in the area around Israel are usually fairly mild. It is the desert, after all, and it's getting very close to winter. and so it would be somewhat milder weather. Of course, humanitarian organizations could set up humanitarian aid stations for them, which should entirely be possible because, after all, Hamas is a completely upstanding and reputable organization, according to the folks who say that they would take humanitarian aid. That should be entirely possible for them to set up a humanitarian station or humanitarian camp in the south of the Gaza Strip, if we're taking that as true. There also is a housing limit, but once again, there are countries in the area that are completely sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, like Egypt and Jordan, that would be more than happy to take on hundreds of thousands of refugees if need be, like many Eastern European countries did during the Ukraine war, and provide for their security and safety until the war ended and the conditions were suitable enough that they could return back to their homes. I'm not one for the idea of acting like someone must stop a war because a terrorist group is going to use civilians as shields. That is completely different than the aspect of the Russians invading a country and then going out of their way to slaughter civilians and then not allowing them the chance to leave their cities. Those are two entirely separate things, and going off of that, there are multiple solutions that could be made to this Gazan situation if the Hamas weren't terrorists, and also if the countries around that are saying that things are as bad as they are would actually act as though they were as bad as they were saying. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $50 super chat from KG yet again. This is KG's third or fourth support of the night. So KG's been going in strong tonight, and thank you very much for that support once again. And he says, as from my cousin, quote unquote, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them.
And I thank you so much for the support once again, KG, the third support of the night. And I thank you for helping the channel to keep on running. And I would say that that quote's a fairly true one. I think it's, I'm always one that says actions speak louder than words. That's why we're always into, instead of just speaking words like everyone loves to do, and that's something very prevalent, of people just going thoughts and prayers, which is just so annoying to me. But I really believe in the idea of action. A lot of people don't believe in that anymore. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling, because folks like you make it possible. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much for a nice quote. I really like that quote, KG, and I think I'll make sure to try and remember that one in my head. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Michael T, who says, it's a war crime to force them to move with threats of bombing them.
No. That's
being kind, actually. Taking them out of the line of fire so they don't get harmed. That's the opposite of a war crime, actually.
Actually, that's not a war crime at all, because you're saying, hey, folks, there's a war coming. Y'all need to leave because the war is going to be here. That's not a war crime. A war crime would be bombing them, first off, and then saying, hey, why don't y'all leave? And then when they start leaving, you bomb the folks that are leaving. That's a war crime. It's not a war crime to tell someone the war is coming your way, y'all better get out of the way. That's what happens in war. Because wars are inevitable, you see, because then that means that a war in itself is a war crime, because you're telling people, hey, y'all, there's a war coming your way, we don't want y'all to get killed in it, y'all might want to leave. That means that every war is a war crime. That means that, that means that when World War II was fighting against the Japanese and the Nazi Germans in World War II, we were just literally a living war crime, because every time we took a step forward to push the Germans back, we were just pushing into a place that we told people to leave because the war was coming that way, but we're still freaking war criminals because apparently it's just a war crime to fight a war. So thank you for the support, not getting that idea at all. And we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Firestarter yet again, who puts in the 5 and says, do you think it's a realistic goal to defeat Hamas, or will there just be another Hamas-like organization in the future?
I feel like there would probably just be another Hamas-like organization in the future, and that's why I think that while Gaza should remain a Palestinian territory where Gazans and Palestinians can live, I feel like their civil administration should be greatly limited in its powers and abilities, and there should be a constant Israeli security presence within the Gaza Strip to make sure that things like this don't happen again. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Firestarter yet again, who puts in a 5 and says, Enforcer Matt, Elon Musk, the people that like him a lot are trying to rationalize his stupidity.
Yeah, that's something that we've normally seen, and we've never, to be quite honest, we've not really been fans behind the scenes of who he is as a public figure. You know, he does great things in his own sphere, you know, like Tesla and SpaceX and stuff. You know, we can't really deny pretty cool stuff, pretty great stuff. But at the same time, after he bought Twitter, he kind of forced himself to be on the front page of everyone's Twitter. And then you just start to see the stupid, and I don't mean to be rude about it, but it's like stupid drivel that he puts out, and it's just goofy stuff. And you're like, I don't want to see this. And on top of that, it's not really making it look that good anymore. And yet he keeps on. And it's honestly, I think it's degrading his public opinion of him a lot more than anything else ever has. And you know, of course, there's always going to be a crowd of people who support anyone. And so they're, of course, coming to his defense. But honestly, what he did was pretty goofy. Again,
I want the old Elon back, the one that was kind of nerdy and the one that just was, you know, doing productive stuff. Even though he was making a lot of money, that's his right to make the money. And he got very wealthy doing what he did, and he was good at it. The moment he delved into politics, though, was the moment that he single-handedly destroyed his own reputation.
Yeah, I just want the Rocket Man car guy back. You know, like he was a pretty cool guy when he was just a Rocket Man car guy. You know, and that was pretty neat and all. But once he delved into politics, like everything, it turns to crap. And just don't delve into politics. Just keep that out of the picture. Just do what you do and leave it at that. Like, you know, like every billionaire, I think that's a message for every billionaire. Just don't get into politics. Just do your thing, run your business, and just have no opinion. It's very easy to not have one. Just keep it to yourself. But with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support.
And the next one goes to Jesse Glenn, who puts in a 10 and says, real quick, got a student in the spot. Bye. And Jesse Glenn says, hey, Enforcer Bros, just want to send my love as the negativity can be really fatiguing. You guys are doing GOD's work, LSA.
And thank you so much, Jesse Glenn, for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And thank you so much for sending love our way, because I got to tell you, the negativity is it's a little fatiguing. We power through it, though, of course, the way we always do. But it does wear down on you, because when I originally started this channel, I had a very optimistic look at people, always expecting that people were going to be doing the right things, not going to be clicks, anything like that. And over 2 years, I found out that that's just entirely not true at all. And so the negativity has built up on me. It certainly changed me as a person. I won't even deny that. I really don't like to even think about having friendships with really anyone outside of this channel or this community, because it seems as though every time we did that, we got stabbed in the back wrongfully as well. So we don't even look outside of our channel anymore, and I think that's honestly for the best now, but it took about 2 years to learn that. But thank you so much for the support and backing us up, as everyone in the Lee Spring Army always has. And thank you for saying that we're doing good work. It means a lot to us. We always try our best to, you know, support the right cause around the world everywhere. And I'm glad that many of y'all think that tonight. And so with that, long live the Lee Spring Army. Thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Blue Flam 777 yet again, and he throws in a $100 donation. And huge shout out to you, Blue Flam, for the multiple supports tonight. I can't remember the number, but thank you very much for that support once again. Very generous. He says boogers and cream on a plate, and he said that because he can. And he can. And he says, what I just said makes more sense than Elon. And because of that, here's a rabbit with a pancake on its head. And question to the chat.
And thank you so much for the support, Blue Flam 777 LSA. Of course, a Lee Spring Army old guard and legend. And I would say that does make more sense than what Elon said, no doubt about that. What he says doesn't really make much sense. It doesn't really even tie to each other. And also, thank you so much for giving us a rabbit with a pancake on his head. That sounds really cute. And speaking of which, I think I had something called like a cat head chicken biscuit today or something like that. It was pretty good. We actually kind of had like a day out on the town a little bit today, as much as we could. Like from like, I think like 11 to like 3 or something like that. So it wasn't that long of a time. But for us, like that was the longest break we've had in like months, it seems. And so that was really nice, really fun, and that made me think of that little dish. But still, thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Blue Flam, and we will make sure to get a question from the chat.
And the question from the chat goes to AF Kaplan, who says, regarding Turkey, could they interfere with U.S. naval operations by refusing access to the Bosphorus Strait?
They could possibly do that. I have a feeling that the repercussions of doing something like that would probably be so swift and so severe against Turkey on a diplomatic scale, they would probably back off of doing that very quickly. But they actually do have the right. Hypothetically, they could do that. And so with that, I hope that does answer that live chat well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Mark Gagne, who puts in a 5 and says, "You are the best news channel that I listen to. Thanks. And don't take a live chat question. Get some schlep. Ba and a boo."
And thank you so much for the support, Mark Gagne. And boo, I'm going to steal your ankles. But still, thank you so much once again for helping the channel to keep on running. And thank you for saying that we're a great news channel. I was actually hanging out a place today and someone said, "Hey, I was watching your channel. It's really good." It means a lot to us to actually hear folks say good things about the channel. And so I got to thank you so much for throwing in a positive comment, Mark, and helping this channel to keep on running. There's folks like you make it possible. And so with that, we won't get a live chat, and we will be moving on to the next one. So that way we can hopefully get some sleep. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Sign Find Belai, who puts in a 5 and says, "I've been watching the stream since late winter and early spring of 2023. I wish I'd found you guys earlier, and long live the LSA."
And long live the Lee Spring Army. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. Folks like you have made it possible for a very long time. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make it possible. I got to thank you for watching for nearly a year at this point. I hope that we've been able to leave a good impression, and we must have for an entire year. And I thank you so much for supporting this channel tonight and helping us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
And the next one goes to Steve T, who puts in a 5 as well and says, "Elon Musk is like the Russian oligarch protecting his Starlink sales into underdeveloped regions."
Yeah, kind of. It kind of looks like that, but it also looks like him just doing the goofy stuff he kind of does, and just doing it. Let me be really honest here with everyone. Yeah, he's done SpaceX and Tesla, but hasn't he had like 30 other flops that we all kind of just, don't really mention, like the Boring Company? Like, what did that turn into?
That's just business. I mean, that's just being an entrepreneur. I mean, you're gonna have failures here and there. Like, we can't fault him for that.
Yeah, but for the guy to, kind of like try and present himself to the public like he's like the Nikola Tesla of his time, it's like, man, he created a traffic jam underground, it's like that didn't go anywhere, and the Hyperloop never went anywhere either, like, and I give him credit for what he's done, and and of course in business there will be failures. There are more failures than there are successes always. But, if you're going to try and present yourself to the public as being that go-getter kind of person who can get things done and always succeeds, and just has like the golden touch, you can't have failures like that under your belt. That's just my opinion on it. If he was a lot more humble about everything, then I'd be like, yeah, of course you have business failures. Everyone has business failures. But with the way he presents himself, it's like you have business failures that goes against the image you're trying to portray to everyone out here. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to KG yet again. He throws in another $50 donation.
Hey!
And once again, KG, huge shout out for the 4th time for that very generous support. He says, "That was a direct quote from from JFK, my cousin, and even today it reigns true."
JFK's your cousin?
He says, "From JFK, my cousin."
What the hell? You had JFK as a cousin? That's pretty wild, actually. That's actually nuts. That's crazy. And I gotta say, KG, that is really freaking cool to have a president as your cousin. Of course, rest in peace, but still, thank you so much once again for the support. I would have to say it does reign fairly true. I didn't know that he said that. That's actually pretty wild and really cool. Congrats on you for having a president as a cousin. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ed, who throws in a 5 and says, "Irish Ed yet again. You are fine American men. And I have 2 college-age girls. I don't want them to date anyone. However, you guys might be spared the bat."
Hey, well, I thank you for the support. I thank you for the kind words there. But of course, we always try and make sure to keep things nice and good. But still, thank you for the offer, though. That's a very nice one. And thank you so much once again for the high praise. And so with that, we're on to I don't really know how to respond to that, but still, thank you so much for the support. And Matthew's just awkwardly laughing in the corner, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Sandra Phillips, who puts in a 3 and says, "Thanks for the daily update."
And thank you so much for the support and enjoying the daily update. We try our best, and of course, your support helps us to keep this thing running and keep the news and the daily updates coming. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have yet another one from KG. He throws in a 20 this time and says Israel was not created in order to disappear. Israel will endure and flourish. It is the child of hope and the home of the brave and democracy, and it honors a sword of freedom.
And I thank you so much for the support, KG, and I think that Israel will certainly prevail and continue to live on. A couple of folks waving flags in the middle of a city square aren't going to change the fact that Israel is here, much like they haven't changed the factor into the war in Ukraine. Which is also an equal critique of people who paint roads and stuff with Ukrainian flags. It's like, you're not doing anything. Why don't you, like actually like support a group that's doing something in Ukraine to actually help out instead of painting a street, because it's not doing anything but annoying people. But moving on from that, which I had to say in a low, quiet voice to make sure that I got the seriousness of it across and tried not to ruffle feathers, because I'm sure it will. But still, I would have to agree, Israel will continue to survive and will continue to flourish. And I think that it will have better times in the future. Of course, like every country, it is going through a little bit of a rough time domestically. No one really can deny that. But I still think that after it prevails in this war, it'll most likely see better times in the future and hopefully continue to prosper. Well, not prosper, but prosper. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, KG. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Gerald Mansfield, as well as Business to Businesses by Sheila Arnold, who each put in a $2 donation. And thank you both, Gerald and Sheila, for that support. We also have a 2 from Wapalong Cassidy, who says, people of Iran are so oppressed, they love the U.S.
And yes, they do. I remember we looked in Iran, Matthew. Remember we saw that Playtime place near Tehran, and it had like a whole bunch of American stuff at it?
Yes, it was playtime.
Yeah, and that shows they like America. Why in the world does everyone act like Iran's on the right side? Not even their people like the government. And I bet you they would be cheering us on if we went in there and overthrew it. And so with that, thank you for the support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And we have yet another one from KG, of all people, who puts in a $50 donation yet again. Huge shout out to you, KG. And I feel like a broken record. KG is filling the top bar on the live chat thing. Every single one is KG. Thank you very much for the support. He says, JFK was very Catholic and supported Jewish state. Pope did as well. So why now all of a sudden, why terrorists have more to say than JFK?
Thank you for the massive amount of support, KG. And that's something I think a lot of people should remember about the history of Israel, because a lot of people try and make it sound like it's just like a solely Jewish thing. Yeah, not really. I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for the British, who at the time were majority Anglican, that supported this move of Jewish people into Israel, it wouldn't really exist today. Largely, a lot of those Jewish people, a majority of them would probably die in the Holocaust, and very few of them would have ever made it to Israel after the war. And I would say that it is interesting to see that a lot of people are out there just saying things that make no sense to me, but it is what it is. And I got to be honest with you, KG, at this point, arguing against people, I've nearly given up. That's why my points don't even sound that good anymore, because I just sit there and think, who the hell even listens anymore? No one listens. Everyone's dead set in their mindset. So either people are with us or against us, and that is what it is to me. I'm just glad to know that everyone in the Lee Spring Army is on the same page, and not backing up a terrorist organization like a whole bunch of other people like to do. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, KG. I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we're moving on to our live chat questions, and we have 3 to address. And the first one goes to Pakatang, who says, why is it impossible to take any position on the war in Israel? Does the war in Israel help people clarify that Ukrainians really are the good guys and Russia are evil?
Can you reread that one again?
Why is it impossible to take any position on the war in Israel? And does the war in Israel help people clarify that the Ukrainians really are the good guys and Russia are evil?
I'm going to have you translate that one for me, Matthew, because for some reason it's not clicking for me.
He says, does the war in Israel paint the Russia-Ukraine situation in a better light so people can really understand that the Russians are evil and that the same situation applies in Israel?
Not really, from what I'm seeing, because people are just like throwing logic out of the window for a good bit and just going with whatever the hell they think, because Hamas is clearly aligned with the Russians, yet people support Hamas. But then at the same time, they also support Ukraine. And it's really throwing me for a loop to the point I can't even really dissect how that makes sense, because they condemn the Russians in one sphere and then cheer on their group in another. It's like cheering on Wagner. It makes no sense. And it hasn't really done much to make Ukraine look better, because people are almost treating these things like two totally different instances. Like, we're not trying to fight the Russians, the Iranians, and the Chinese everywhere around the world. We're only trying to do that in certain instances and then allow them to win in others. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Acklerin, who says, what would happen if Israel attacked inside of Turkey?
If Israel attacked inside of Turkey, that actually could probably invoke NATO Article 4 and Article 5, and it probably would be a fair argument. So the Israelis probably wouldn't want to do that, and I think they're certainly going to avoid that, because although NATO is largely pro-Israel, that still would fall within the invocation of war under the NATO Charter, against most everyone's wishes, although that will probably play into the factors. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our last one of the night. Would you like to do the thing?
Last one of the night, we got live chats, don't we?
These are the live chats.
What? Oh, man. Yeah. Dude, I'm that tired, man. I didn't even know we were in the live chats. So with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Barry Woodward, who says, what are your thoughts on the possibility that the world's current situation was devised by Putin himself?
It's not that high, because Putin had poor planning in Ukraine to the point it looks idiotic, really. I would think that this is something that the Iranians were still trying to conduct in Israel like they've been doing for decades, and the Russians had probably coaxed them on, but more so than it being like a ringleader kind of thing where there's one guy running everything behind the scenes. I think it's just kind of pieces on the puzzle that kind of all fell into the same place at the same time that have created this perfect storm. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank all of y'all so much for coming here tonight and watching this stream. At the peak, there were 6.1 thousand of y'all here live, and there were 32,000 of y'all who have watched this stream before it ended. We are, of course, honored to know that every single one of y'all have been able to be here for tonight's news, and we hope that y'all found it to be as high quality of reporting as we always have been. If you did enjoy, make sure to hit the like button, make sure to subscribe, and make sure to share this with family and friends, because we run this stream 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, every single day of the week. Pretty much, unless we're completely dead tired, and then we might cancel one. But we almost always run this thing 6 days a week, every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Monday. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, God bless Israel, God bless the United States, and of course, good night, everyone, and have a great night. And I hope to see you all tomorrow for the Sunday night fundraiser.
And good night, folks. We'll see you all tomorrow for that fundraiser. And shout out to KG yet again. And good night. Slava Ukraine, Slava Israel, and enjoy this